is so many police officers and FDNY and other emergency rescue crews there trying to respond to this situation, which, by the way, unfolded about 3:15 this afternoon. That's when we understand what happened. And from what I understand from the witnesses that are being quoted in a number of reports and here on social media, that they heard loud noises before this happened.
Interesting. That's a key piece of information. So that would point to something going wrong with the helicopter, obviously, before it fell into the Hudson River. As you mentioned, not even an hour ago. We have some new images to look at. We can see if this will shed any light on what took place. These are from Twitter X. You can see the helicopter. I'm presuming that was the helicopter that wound up in the river in the air, and then a short time later, here it is in the Hudson River, Jersey side, by the Holland Tunnel entrance. A rescue operation underway as we speak.
If indeed that's a picture of the helicopter, that's a Bell 206.
Which is
Bell helicopter, turbine-powered helicopter. There it is.
Is that like the Vietnam type helicopters?
No, that's what Dan was saying that they fly.
Okay,
that Skyfox is the same type of helicopter. The Vietnam helicopter days were the Hueys.
Oh, right.
The old Hueys that used to fly. But they also have the older Bells, or the Bell known as the Bell Jet Ranger, a very popular helicopter. It sort of evolved into the Bell 206.
And I'm trying, looking at that picture, I'm trying to see if we're seeing a puff of smoke by the helicopter. Those images before, if that was just a cloud. Really, honestly, tough to tell at this point. But we can't tell you that rescue operation is still underway as we speak.
And it's all hands on deck. FDNY, NYPD, Jersey City, Hoboken. We saw ambulances coming up too over the Holland Tunnel there. And you gotta. Is that area hard to navigate?
Aviation-wise, no. It isn't. In fact, there's a heliport not far from there.
Okay.
Right. The west side there, the 33rd, I think it's the 33rd Street heliport. Yeah. So there is a heliport near there that's active, and that's where a lot of the tourist flights leave out.
Right, you go to the Hamptons there, you can go, whatever.
Or there's one, of course, on the east side too, down by 34th Street.
Yeah.
But again, this is.
This is the pic. If we can head back to that X picture, which isn't on screen right now, but we'll be there in a second.
Because you can see some smoke there.
I know. I don't know.
See if we can zoom in on that. See if that's a cloud or if that's something else going on.
And then that's
you can
the
see that
picture.
picture was taken from the Jersey side, right? Because you got the city background there, so it's looking back towards the city, which means it was heading southbound.
And I guess, Nick, it does seem like if something goes wrong in a helicopter, things go wrong faster than in a plane. Is that accurate?
Well, it depends, right? So, and also depends how much altitude you have to try to save the helicopter.
The higher the better?
The higher the better, because helicopters go into what's called an auto-rotation mode. If they lose power, some catastrophic engine failure, if they're high enough, they can take the momentum still of the blades and what they call auto-rotate down. It won't be the smoothest landing, but they can. But now, if you're only 100 or 200 feet off the ground,
you don't have much time.
You don't have much time,
Gotcha.
and a lot of these choppers,
What are you thinking about how high the helicopter might have been from that one picture we're looking at from Twitter?
A couple hundred feet. I don't think it was more than 300 to 500 feet up. Probably
and this particular model, you said the Bell.
If it indeed is the Bell,
if it is that upside down, landing upside down. I mean, walk us through what that would even look like, a rescue operation.
So you're going to have the doors in front, right, for the crew. The two doors in the front, and then you're going to have the two larger doors in the back for the passengers. So the question again would be egress from what doors? Who's going to get out where, depending on again where the helicopter ended up, sideways, upside down.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, let's go back to Dan Rice. Seems like we're piecing together some new information with these pictures, Dan, about what type of helicopter it must be. Nick shed some good light on that. I don't know if you have any thoughts to add on what we're seeing now.
Well, I'm trying to see the pictures you guys are looking at because I'm watching it on the TV, so I'm a few seconds behind you guys. From one picture I see where that chopper is in the air.
Yeah, that's the one.
If I'm looking at it correctly, if you look in the river, it looks like a lot of the ferries or whatever are already by the crash site. That one looks to me, it might be PD Aviation. That might be one of the rescue helicopters.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, sure. That would make sense.
Which I think is the Augusta. I think they fly over there. But I think that might be aviation. That picture may have taken place after the crash because there's a lot of activity in the water by the pier already.
Oh, you're right. That makes a lot of sense, right? There'd be no reason to take a picture of a helicopter before it went down. I think you're right. I see the Coast Guard boats
and being
there.
That low, most choppers won't, if they're in a normal flight operation, as Nick is saying, there's a layered airspace over there. they wouldn't be that low unless they were landing in Jersey City at that point. And there is a small helipad around there somewhere, but that one looks like it might be the aviation helicopter from NYPD.
Yeah, I think you're right.
We're looking at in that photo.
Dan, after this happened at 3:15, how soon were you over the area? Because I'm just curious about how quick the response was to all this.
Well, like I was saying before, we're unfortunately not able to fly at the moment because the company's wind minimums aren't being met or exceeded. So we haven't been over the scene yet.
Okay.
I can tell you that if from the time we get called to the time we would get over there, it would take us about 10 minutes max to be over that area. If aviation is already up, they're coming out of Floyd Bennett Field over in Brooklyn. And their helicopters are probably over in that area in 10 minutes as well.
And Dan, you know, we don't know how many people were on board, but certainly I'm assuming there's paperwork, and no helicopter goes up or down on the Hudson River without paperwork being filed and them knowing how many people are on board. So when the rescue crews show up, they presumably know how many people should be accounted for, right?
Not necessarily. So if this may have been a tour helicopter flying the model that they're in, the pattern that they're on. The tour helicopters that operate around the city, they have pre-prescribed routes that they fly. So all the towers in the area know that I'm tour helicopter so-and-so. We're going to fly the Alpha route, the Beta route, the Yankee route. And they have a very specific pattern that they do every single time. So they know that these choppers are operating as tour helicopters. They know there are passengers, but there's not a manifest necessarily every single flight they go up.
Gotcha.
Because they just go up and they have, a preset, what they call a squawk, a number that goes into their radio that the tower knows, oh, this is tour helicopter A, B, C, so on. So when you arrive on the scene, not necessarily. We get launched whenever there's something going on, and it's just my pilot and I go to the helicopter, we get in, he calls Newark Tower, we're going to go here or there, and they say, Skybox, go ahead. And there's nothing saying who's on the chopper or what we're doing or any of the other stuff like that.
All right, let's go to Sharon Crowley now really quickly, because Sharon, you had some good information, reports of as many as 4 people could have been on that helicopter. What more can you tell us that you're learning?
Exactly, Natasha, and we're also hearing from the NYPD and FDNY that as many as 2 were pulled out of that helicopter. Let me give you some information that I'm just getting in right now. We understand that the helicopter crashed 3:17 p.m. is when the crash happened in the Hudson River just off Manhattan, and as we've seen now, the rescue mission is closer to the Jersey side. Now the rescue craft that we're looking at on the screen there, it's close to the Manhattan waterfront, but it's near the Jersey side, near a long maintenance pier for one of the ventilation towers for the Holland Tunnel. So that's what you're looking at right there in the video. Now the fire department had units on scene performing rescue operations, multiple rescue boats, as we can see, and videos that we've seen on social media and our own videos here, and even some that were taken earlier, showing that the aircraft mostly submerged and upside down in the water. And we were also getting some reports on social media from witnesses who heard a loud boom before this happened. They were on the West Side piers. Those are the witnesses who were being interviewed and heard the loud noise in the air before it crashed into the water. And it was in the water, as we said. 3:17 is when this happened. 3:40 is when the helicopter was seen upside down in the water, and now closer, as we said, to the Jersey side. We also are reporting and learning from the FDNY that their divers are in there trying to perform emergency rescue operations. And the West Side Highway, many areas of it near Spring Street closed down because emergency vehicles are responding there to this situation. So it's an area you want to avoid if you possibly can. And as we said, they're also fighting the currents, the wind, and the weather in this case, not to mention the temperature of the water in the Hudson River at this time is obviously frigid, and lives are at stake.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Sharon.
Yeah.
All great info, and yeah, we do have it now. We've got a new camera live on the ground. We can get a much more close-up look at the Coast Guard boats, rescue boats, and everything you just said is so true. You can see the wind's whipping, the water's choppy. You can see the white caps. It's just not a nice day out there.
And it's about to start raining. I just looked at the radar, so we got showers coming in. And I went back to look at the observation by Teterboro Airport, which is the closest airport to the crash scene here. What was the actual conditions around 3:15? And the wind was, again, out of the southeast. It was sustained at about 10 to 15 miles per hour, but they were reporting gusts near 30 miles per hour
Okay.
around that time. So the wind had definitely picked up this afternoon compared to this morning. And again, you can sort of see that somewhat related with those whitecaps going on out there. But it is about to rain. There's a little band of showers just moving in over lower Manhattan. Some of it's not reaching the ground per se because it's still a bit dry in the atmosphere, but that's the other thing they're going to be dealing with as we move forward. They'll be in and out of the showers here into this evening.
Yeah.
And they've been now in the water for basically an hour. 3:17,
Yeah.
we're told this helicopter went down in the Hudson River. Potentially 4 people. We know that 2 people have been rescued. You can see this is still a very active situation. Lots of rescue crews on scene. As a tugboat goes by or shot, this is a live camera right at ground level to give you an idea. You can see those Coast Guard boats they have, some of the rescue ships, etc. And I do believe we have someone right now. Alan Mack, who's a retired Army helicopter pilot, is going to join us now on the phone. Alan, are you here? Not yet. Okay, we're going to check in with him in a minute, just as we continue to follow this breaking situation. We are now 1 hour in. A helicopter down in the Hudson River. This is the Jersey City, Jersey side of the river. A big rescue effort underway right now. We still have a lot of unanswered questions as far as how many people were on board that helicopter. And as Dan made a great point, you know, let's say this was a tourist helicopter. They don't have to know everybody on board at all times. This thing's just sort of doing a loop all day. So it's
hard. It's hard to
difficult
know.
when they show up on scene. They don't know
Right.
exactly what they're
Yeah.
looking for potentially.
And when we were talking to Sharon earlier, she made some good points about eyewitnesses hearing a loud boom before the helicopter went down to the water. And now divers are in the water performing rescue operations. This is all happening near the West Side Highway and Spring Street in that vicinity. And we've got a lot of activity out there. It's a very treacherous situation. I mean, you can see the waters are choppy. It's cold.
Yeah, the latest water temperature, by the way, I just looked it up. It's 50 degrees, right at 50 degrees.
50 degrees,
Yeah.
and it's been an hour since this has gone down. It
Yeah.
went down at 3:17 p.m. It is now, and at 3:40 p.m. is when we saw the helicopter
Yeah.
upside down. We do have Alan Mack, retired Army helicopter pilot, on the phone with us. Alan, can you hear us? Okay, we don't have him just
Nope,
yet.
sorry.
But it will be good to have him on so we can kind of talk about the context behind all of this as we kind of see the rescue boats continue these operations. It's you know, everything's happening underwater right now. The
Yeah.
helicopter was upside down. So
Divers in there. You know, maybe if we could just go back to the wide shot just for a second to give us a chance to sort of compare what we saw earlier as far as the number of boats on scene. Yes, sir. That's what I'm looking at right there. You can see like the Waterways Ferry or NYPD rescue boat. Those are all right up against that above the Holland Tunnel. That's what you're looking at right there on the Jersey side. It does seem a little quieter, Nick, doesn't it? I mean, we've seen boats come and go. I'm not sure exactly what that tells us. If maybe they've scooped everyone up. We saw an ambulance, which I don't.
you
Oh,
see
we
it
still
kind
see
of
it
down
in the
down
middle
the
of
ways there.
that
Yeah.
tunnel right on top of
The boats seem to
river.
have dispersed a little bit. There
Yeah.
was like a lot of
It
concentrated
seems
activity
less active
for a while.
in a way
Yeah.
now. What that tells us, still unclear at this point.
As many as 4 people reported in that helicopter. 2 were pulled out. I think that's what Sharon was telling us. So we're kind of piecing this together live with you right now. And 50 degree
Yeah, the water
temperatures in
temperature
the
is
water.
50 degrees, so I mean, unless you're wearing a wetsuit,
Yeah.
you know, some kind of thermal suit, you know, you're
You don't wanna be in long,
You
right.
don't want to be in there, you know, and it's as time goes on, it becomes very painful on your body for
Yeah.
a while, and then actually your body kind of goes numb.
Yeah.
Right, and that's
and
bad
that's
news.
when it's
yeah,
bad,
for sure. Well,
exactly.
you know,
So-
I think what you said before is interesting. When you train for these sort of situations, where if the helicopter were to go down into the water, you got to kind of pull off this 1-2 where you want to be buckled in for the impact, and then you want to be unbuckled as fast as possible, and then get out of the helicopter. Which, unless you've been through this sort of training,
Exactly.
is not
and
an
what
easy
kind
thing
of
to
buckle?
do.
You know, is it a harness? Is it a 3-point harness, a 4-point harness? How quickly can you pop yourself out of the harness?
And I think
did they
yeah.
depending again who's on the helicopter, did they get as they probably should have, a
Yeah.
passenger briefing, right? You know, we always give safety briefings. When you hear it, of course, on an airline.
Yeah.
Well, you would hear it in smaller
Yeah.
aircraft too, what to do if. So you would hope that they had been given a safety briefing.
Yeah.
If this happens, you do this.
You talk about like cars that get, go into like a pool or go into water. In theory, the idea of unbuckling and getting out, breaking a window seems in theory to be easy, but underwater, I mean, you talk about water pressure.
Yes.
That's serious stuff.
And then compound that if you're upside down.
Yeah.
Right. So now you're disoriented. Right. So you're like, where am I?
Right, right.
Where's my butt? Where's my belt? How do I get out of here? Where's the door? It's also dark. Right. It's not as much light at this point when you're upside down under the water like that.
Yeah.
Are we going to Meredith here? I see we've got a reporter on position here down on, looks like on the Jersey side of the Hudson River.
Visibility
Meredith,
is seeming to get worse
That's
too.
the rain now, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
we do have the
raining
rain
now.
that's coming in that we talked
And
about.
I
You
do-
can see
all
it. That's the rain showers that are now moving in.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Meredith Gorman. She's on the ground now. Meredith, what can you add to the conversation here? Obviously, still a lot we don't know.
That's right. We just got here. We are on the Jersey City side right here. You can see, I believe, the helicopter upside down in the water behind us. It's really windy out. The rain is starting to come down here, but there's a lot of people who have come over to this pier walkway area to take in the helicopter in the water right here. Now, sources are telling Fox 5 that at least 5 people were on board at the time of this crash and that there was at least one fatality. Again, that hasn't been confirmed by FDNY yet, but sources are telling us that.
Yeah, that's major new info, Meredith. We do appreciate that. 5 people on board. You can see it on the bottom of your screen. 1 fatality. That's a major update. The earliest information we had just was that 2 people were rescued.
And
so
4
if that, assuming all of this info is true, again, she said it's not verified by NYPD, but let's go with it and just say that's true. That would mean there's 2 people theoretically still in the water, potentially.
Yeah. Meredith, is it starting to rain now?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, is it raining right now? Tell us a little bit about the weather conditions out there.
Sure, it's raining. The wind is super gusty. In fact, I had my umbrella up right before you guys started talking to me, and it blew inside out. The umbrella is broken. There's a lot of rescue boats at the scene. I would see about 1, 2, 3, 4, I mean, probably close to 10 in the water next to the pier right now. There's an ambulance on the pier next to where the helicopter went down. The weather conditions are bad. The wind is certainly picking up, and again, we don't know what the cause of this helicopter crash was, but the wind out here is certainly something that's noticeable, guys.
Meredith, can you see the helicopter upside down? Is that what we're looking at right now?
Yeah, so we see two what looks like the bottom of a helicopter that are sticking out of the water, floating right next to the pier. There's an NYPD boat right next to it. You can kind of see it's upside down, which would basically add up with what all of the witnesses have told us about the helicopter landing upside down and people being submerged in it when it first fell into the water. So it doesn't look like it's been touched. Again, we've heard reports that people have been rescued and taken out of this helicopter, but it is still in the water, as you can see directly behind us here.
Very well. Yeah, Meredith, good insight. We appreciate that. Eye on the ground. And Nick, what's your thoughts going through your mind? The idea that it landed upside down, that seems troubling.
Yeah, and you can see if those are, again, the skids, right? And so the bottom of the helicopter, those are the skids that look like they're visible. It looks like there were pontoons on there, but they maybe didn't have time to deploy them.
If it landed upside down, it's not going to make much of a difference.
Because the pontoons would allow it to float.
The orange and the yellow that we saw.
Yeah, and there was like a gray there. It's hard, it's hard to tell from that angle.
Yeah.
Would those just be on the helicopter at all times? Because it's flying on the river. Okay, it doesn't inflate when you land or whatever.
It becomes a part of the actual equipment.
Gotcha.
Some helicopters have them, some don't.
And I mean, I guess we continue to talk about the weather, which is certainly important. But over an hour in now, how much is it really? I mean, time is of the essence here.
Well, it is.
It's scary
and again,
every minute that
weather's,
passes.
we were expecting the weather to deteriorate this afternoon, right?
Yeah.
The rain coming in, raining now. The wind has picked up again from this morning when it wasn't so bad. Latest observations now, again, I'm looking at the area observations.
Yeah.
The winds are gusting up near 30 plus miles per hour.
We do have some difficult news to report now. The AP is reporting that 6 people have died
Wow.
in this. So this is new information that we're getting right now. Again, a helicopter crashed into the Hudson River vicinity of West Side Highway and Spring Street. According to the AP, 6 people have died in this crash. When we spoke to Sharon, she talked about eyewitnesses saying that they heard a loud boom before it crashed into the water. Divers were in there performing rescue operations. You can see a major scene and response out there right now, but this is, you kind of alluded to this, Nick, just the difficulty of the situation of landing upside down.
That's a devastating update, again, to repeat.
It is.
AP, 6 people dead. I mean, really the worst case scenario here, because I think all along we've been talking about, at most, maybe this helicopter would have 7 people on it. So
Yes.
to hear 6 people are dead, that really, that's
Tragic,
tough to
yes.
hear. It's hard. Are there any survivors? We don't know. 6 people dead.
Yeah, we don't have a roster or manifest of who was on the helicopter.
And we don't know what type of helicopter this was, who was carrying. Is it tourists? Is it
Well, with
business
6
people?
people
Is it
on board,
private?
it's a decent size if it's at least 6.
What does that make you think?
Again, as Dan had pointed out, it could have been a Bell 206.
But would that be more likely to be tourists in your mind, or
Could be.
could
Could be a
right, something like
tourist
that?
helicopter,
River
yeah, it
cruise,
could very
right.
well be. Again, as you mentioned earlier, executives get helicoptered in and out of Lower Manhattan as well.
All the time, yeah.
So
I know there's a private chopper depot down there. I've run by that before in that area. All right,
Yeah.
we do have retired Army helicopter pilot Alan Mack on the phone, I'm told. Alan, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, we just got the word a couple moments ago, the AP reporting 6 people dead. We can see the helicopter still floating upside down in the Hudson. What's your reaction to this crash, and any news about it you've been able to take in? What's going through your mind right now?
Really just that it's a terrible tragedy. The helicopter traffic in that area is very dense every day of the week. So it's really pretty...
Alan, I'm going to interrupt you for one moment. We will come back to you in one moment. I do want to play some new video. We just got into the newsroom. This is apparently video of the helicopter going down into the Hudson River. Wow, that thing fell like a stone. That is tough to watch. That was at 3:15, we're told, 3:17 precisely. This helicopter crash took place in the Hudson River. Here's some video of it once again, and we can see it just lost all altitude immediately. That's new into the newsroom. Alan, I don't know if you were able to witness that. What we just saw, in case you weren't able to see it, that helicopter just fell right out of the sky in a hurry, and we could see a massive splash when it landed.
And it looked like it went upside down right at the last
Yeah,
minute.
but that's what we did. We heard it landed upside down. Alan, I don't know if you saw that or not, but that is the situation. What goes through your mind when you hear that? Obviously, something went terribly wrong in this helicopter, and it went wrong pretty quick.
Yeah, other than there is spatial disorientation if they came down nose first or upside down. It could have been a mechanical failure. But had anybody survived the impact of that, getting out of a helicopter in the water, because they always roll inverted, is very, very difficult.
Walk us through what that rescue operation would look like. What all does the diver need to do?
They're going to have to pull the doors off and get inside and cut the seatbelts and pull them out.
Yeah, that's difficult. I think we're all a little bit stunned after seeing that video. Again, the update from the AP a short while ago, 6 people on board this helicopter dead. This is the video just into the newsroom of that helicopter just plunging into the Hudson River on the Jersey side. And seeing that video, that certainly lines up with that unfortunate update we just got from the AP a while ago, that 6 people on board were killed. It's difficult, I guess, to envision if there was anyone else on the helicopter. They survived. At this point, we do know, according to the Associated Press, that 6 people were killed in this crash. So this immediately, Nick, let's just talk about 6 people dead in this crash. Seeing this video, this immediately becomes really a horrific tragedy that needs to be studied and figured out exactly what happened. This is a massive
and
problem,
hearing a
failure.
boom before, what does that tell you?
So, if this indeed was, again, what we've been sort of alluding to, a potential tourist helicopter, maybe a Bell helicopter, or if not a Bell, certainly one that could have been a turbine powered. So, you have turbine-powered helicopters and you have piston-powered helicopters. So the turbine engine is more reliable because there's less moving parts. But when something goes wrong, it can be, potentially catastrophic if it happens in a place where you don't have time to.
And Nick, we're gonna go back to Meredith Gorman, who's on the ground, the Jersey City side. I understand she just spoke with someone, a little boy on the ground here. Meredith, tell us what he saw and what he knows.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm here with Leo. Leo, so you were walking right along here just a little while ago, and what did you see in the water?
I mean, so first of all, a really important thing I saw, so I was walking to school, like my school's in Hoboken, so I was walking through that terminal, and then, like, I didn't hear anything. I just saw, like, a lot of these people were standing at the pier, they were, like, watching something, and then I saw all these boats, and then I'm like, what happened over there? And they said a helicopter crashed. So I'm like, yeah, that's really scary. And I continued down for my way to school, and then I saw this man filming something in the water, and at first I thought, like, recording litter in the water at this time? Seriously? But then I realized those were actual helicopter pieces. Yeah. So I joined the recording.
And what did you see? What did the helicopter pieces look like? You mentioned it might be like the rotors?
Yeah, so it looked like the rotors. They were like big, thick, and they had like on one side, there were two pieces. So the bigger piece, it had like on one side, it was black, and then there was this like a goldish line, and then it was white. Maybe like that can help you figure out which helicopter it is from.
All right,
Thanks,
Meredith,
Leo.
Meredith,
You
thank
mentioned
you.
that you found these way down the rivers. Yeah, so they may have floated down, but it seems like the rotor may have broken off before the helicopter crashed. And thank you so much, Leo.
You're welcome.
Guys.
All right, thank you
Just
for
getting
that.
an idea of some of the impact, the power of the impact that we're seeing too. We're taking a live look right now at this is what's left of that helicopter when we saw it come down upside down. And what are we seeing here, Nick?
So those are the you see the floats? Those are the floats that sit on the skid, because again it's sitting upside down. Interesting perspective if it threw blades. So if it actually lost its rotor blades, well, then you can see the result is that immediate.
Yeah, and Nick, that's the video that I think this has us all sick to our stomach that just came into the newsroom a short while ago. You can see that helicopter just fall right out of the sky. We do have some new info. The FAA posting on social media, a Bell 206 helicopter crashed and is submerged in the Hudson River in New York City. The number of people on board is unknown at this time. This was from 429, but we have heard that the AP, as you see there on the bottom of your screen, reporting at least 6 people killed. And after you see that sickening video, it's, boy, it drives it home that they didn't have much of a shot. That thing just falls, and you see a massive splash into the Hudson River.
I mean, an impact like that, can anyone survive that?
Depending on what altitude they fell from and upside down, the force of impact would be pretty intense.
It's heartbreaking.
And again, I think if we are indeed now speculating it through a blade or multiple blades of whatever catastrophically failed on the rotor, because you have the blades overhead, right, the motor overhead, and then the tail rotor.
Yeah.
The fact that it was going straight down, does that say anything? It wasn't spinning around like you had mentioned before we saw that video.
So did it lose its rotor? I mean, did it lose rotor blades, and so it immediately lost lift and dropped?
And this is, if you're just joining us, checking in right now, you can see this is a helicopter upside down, a Bell T-206 helicopter, a Bell 206 helicopter rather, upside down. 6 people killed in the crash. It happened around an hour 15 minutes ago. 3:17 this crash took place on the Jersey side of the Hudson River. Rescuers there. Unfortunately, though, you can see 6 people killed, according to the Associated Press. And that video we showed a short while ago, you see the helicopter just fell.
It looks like
right
the
out of
floats tried to deploy, so they may have, but it might have been, again, the fact that it's upside down. You're not going to have much chance if you land upside down like that.
No, the currents, and I mean, it's just that wasn't a soft landing into the river. So,
and again, depending what altitude, if it was at a couple of hundred feet up, think of.
We don't know when that descent started. That's just where the person picked it up on their phone.
But imagine dropping 200-300 feet. 400 feet quickly.
That's a lot of an altitude drop. There's a lot of factors in place here, and assuming that the people were in the water then for over an hour. I mean, that's just hypothermia setting in at 45 minutes. It's a really difficult operation.
And I think the question right now too is, so they're saying at least 6, so there could be maybe 7 people or total were on board. We heard 2 people were rescued. We don't know what condition they were in. They were taken out of there. We've seen ambulances come and go. We've seen Coast Guard boats race across.
And you know how the stories change too. So we hope 2 people were rescued.
Yeah, we hope so.
We may find out that no one was
They might have been
rescued.
recovered.
Correct.
Right.
We're piecing all of this live together with you right now, and so it's the information has changed as we've just been on air for the last 30 minutes or so. But the weather conditions in the time that we've been on air have really deteriorated. The wind has picked up. We've seen rain too. And the water temperatures.
It's chilly. It's 50 degrees.
Unfortunately, though, as we've learned, with the new video that's come in, that stuff really, I think, at the end of the day, won't wind up having been.
I don't think so. I mean, the actual. I looked at the observation
that type of crash
at Teterboro Airport, which is the nearest airport to this crash scene. And at the time, the visibility was great. The visibility was 10 miles. The ceiling was at 6,000 feet. Very high ceiling. The wind had picked up, though. That was the one factor that wasn't much happening earlier on in the day, but the wind was sustained 10 to 15 miles an hour out of the southeast direction, but it was gusting to 30.
Gotcha.
So, but again, good visibility, great visibility. 10-mile visibility is excellent visibility with a high ceiling. So.
What happens right now to air traffic? I mean, this doesn't shut down the area airports, but does it ground local traffic on the Hudson?
Potentially, yes. Helicopters that want to transit going up and down. Again, the tourist helicopters. There may be what's called a notice to airmen that's been issued by the FAA, where they're restricting. They're putting up a restricted airspace around the scene. They may reroute traffic up the East River instead, versus coming near here. So
yeah. And we had a number of already, when we were talking to Sharon, a number of roads and areas that were already shutting down because of this. So
West Side Highway, you can
West Side
expect delays. That's right. This will impact people's commute. Obviously, that pales in comparison to the magnitude of the tragedy here. But I hear Sharon in my ear. Are we going to go back to Sharon Crowley, who's down in our newsroom? Sharon, what's the update?
Stephen and Natasha, social media going crazy. We're seeing a lot more videos and witness testimony coming in online there. And the video that we just showed our viewers of it crashing so quickly in the air, really. And what struck me is you could see even a splash of the water as it hits the water, and then immediately appears to be upside down. Just to recap for you, this happened. We're hearing from the NYPD and FDNY, and now Jersey City Fire and Rescue also responding to this situation because it's closer to the Jersey side. 3:17 and then 3:40 is when we're told the rescuers got to the situation, and the Associated Press, as we've been telling our viewers, 6 people on that helicopter that crashed into the Hudson River are now dead. So what we've seen in the last hour, I would say, is that the weather conditions, as you've been pointing out, the water is much choppier, and from helicopter crashes that I've covered on the East River and the Hudson River, the current is so stiff and so strong. Sometimes rescue crews have to move very quickly, even further down, whichever the way the water is going, to try to execute a rescue. And as Nick was saying, 50 degrees, very cold, very cold. Hard to believe anybody could survive in that temperature. But again, Associated Press sadly reporting tonight that 6 people have died. There were a lot of witnesses on both sides, on the Jersey side and in Lower Manhattan. And on the West Side Highway, there's so many emergency crews there that the FDNY and NYPD putting out an alert on Twitter telling people to stay away from that area of Spring Street because they need it for the emergency response there. But what we've seen is the weather conditions deteriorate enough that you can see even executing this rescue mission makes it all the more difficult. But what we don't know now is exactly who those who lost their lives, why they were on that helicopter. But what we've been throwing back and forth for the last hour or so is, of course, there's tourist helicopters, and we've seen some involved in fatal crashes before this, and helicopters for transportation, of course, in Lower Manhattan as well. So we will be getting more information as it becomes available from the FAA, of course. And we are expecting at any time now a press conference. We will be hearing from authorities as soon as they're able to provide one for us. And of course, course, Nick can tell you the NTSB will obviously be involved in this crash investigation as well. But right now, it looks like rescue officials on both sides of the Hudson are involved in this mission, trying to get to the bottom of it. But the bottom line, 6 people lost their lives. Very, very sad today. And it all unfolding at 3:17 this afternoon in the Hudson River when that helicopter went down. So we'll be following the social media reports for you, because there were a lot of eyewitnesses to this. And as I said, some of them heard a loud noise right before this went down. But we'll be keeping you up to date as we get more information on exactly how and why this happened.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks, Sharon. Looking at the video now, I mean, it looks like they're in the process of trying to maybe get the helicopter out of the river. I don't know how that works. They're attaching buoys to it via a rope. Maybe not. They seem to be moving away now. You know, Nick, I'm trying to remember in previous crashes like this, do they try to get the helicopter right out of the river, or do they keep it there because it's a crime scene, or how does that work? I'm trying to remember.
I mean, they're going to try to get it. You know, of course, once they've done their search and rescue or recovery, they'll try to get it out of the river and then try to, put it in a safe spot so they can analyze what might have happened. And, you know, and again,
do helicopters have a black box like planes?
Some do, some don't. This may not. It depends sometimes how it's being operated, for hire or not for hire.
So would they have any interaction with a control tower to figure out, because if we're hearing that there was a loud noise in the way that it was free falling from the air, we don't know at what time it started to do that, but it seems like it may have lost power or something. Would they have that information?
Lost power. Well, it depends how quickly it happened and who were they speaking to.
Yeah.
So there are, as I had mentioned, when I fly up and down the Hudson, I speak to controllers, because I want them to put me on the radar. I want them to see me and tell me about other traffic.
And how often are you talking to them, communicating?
Sometimes they'll make you give a reporting point, or they'll point out traffic that you should be on the lookout for.
Okay.
So, traffic at your 10 o'clock position.
Because there's a lot of activity in this area, especially with all the helipads there.
Exactly.
Commercial and private too.
Exactly. And and now again, if they're below a certain altitude, they may not be speaking to controllers. They may just be what's called self-announcing. There's a frequency on the Hudson River that is for self-reporting, self-announcing, where you report your position.
Okay.
You report your altitude. You'd say, I'm at 800 feet at the Statue of Liberty, northbound. So everybody on that frequency
is aware
of where you are, and then other aircraft or helicopters will also make their position reports. So they may have indeed been making these position reports. They may have been speaking to either Newark, that area. They would probably be speaking to the Newark tower controllers.
Gotcha. Let's go to Linda Schmidt is live on the New York side of the river. She joins us now. Linda, obviously we got that horrible update a short while ago. 6 people killed in this crash. What else can you let us know right now? What are you seeing from your perspective?
Okay, well, we just got here on the scene. We are literally just feet away from the 34th Street pier. But look over my shoulder. Obviously, we are on the New York side. Over my shoulder here, you can see the flashing blue lights there over on the New Jersey side. The FDNY responding here in full force. They had boats in the water. They still have boats in the water. They have divers. I just got off the phone with someone with the FDNY, and they are telling me the divers are about to go back into the water again. They have medics here on the scene. And sadly, as you guys have reported, and I heard this from my sources as well, 6 people on board that helicopter. All 6 bodies, or at least 5 of them, have been pulled from the water so far, and they believe all 6 are fatalities. This happened about 3:15 this afternoon, and apparently, and I'm sure you guys have been reporting this already, we just got dialed in here and were able to go live, so I don't know exactly what you have reported, so I'm just going to tell you what I know. There was some type of an issue with the propeller blade. Apparently, sources are saying that it broke off, and there was some type of a thumping sound showing that the helicopter was in distress before it went down. It hit the water, flipped over, and there was an immediate emergency response from the FDNY, the Coast Guard. The NYPD is on the scene here on the on the New York side. But as far as a response on the New Jersey side, You've got the FDNY, you got the Coast Guard, and you have Jersey City, in addition to other emergency response teams from other New Jersey municipalities. And again, what you're looking at right here is right across the water from where the 34th Street Pier is. But sadly, 6 people died in this crash, and I'm told that some of them were children. So I don't know if you guys have reported that yet or not.
No, we have
That's new
not. That's the
information.
first we're hearing of that. We're just watching this video. We paused it before the moment of impact. But Nick, as I'm looking at this video, it looks like we were able to zoom in a little bit. This horrible video.
And
it looks like the back of the helicopter is off before it impact. It seems like there's a lot of damage to the helicopter before it even hits the
hard to
water.
tell.
Okay, thanks. I got to contact sources. So.
All right, thanks, Linda.
It's hard to tell. It looks like something flies off the back of the helicopter there.
Well, she
I was
did
trying
say
to
that the
see.
propeller blade broke off too.
Yeah, so maybe other pieces of the blade were at that point coming apart from the whatever initially had happened to the helicopter. See,
This looks like it has no tail to the end of the helicopter from that perspective.
Yeah, when you start throwing blades like that, I mean, it's not going to be a very good outcome. I was sort of wondering if that was just a bird getting in the way, but it looks like there is something coming off.
Pieces of it.
Pieces of it. Maybe it was another piece. Maybe it threw one rotor blade, and then the imbalance created more vibration. So then other pieces then started.
Helicopters is such a delicate piece of engineering, really, in a lot of ways.
You
Aren't
have to
they?
think about it. I mean, there's pieces that are trying to get away from each other. Right?
Yeah.
That's how the helicopter kind of flies with the tilt of the rotor blades and the speed of the blade to produce the lift and to allow the helicopter to climb, hover, and come back down again.
Just to give us some perspective on the Bell 206, talk to us about what kind of structure this is. What is it normally used for in terms of just like flying?
Well, again, it's a turbine-powered helicopter. It's very common around the world. Again, Skyfox is a Bell 206.
Yeah.
So it's used in police activity. It's used in news gathering, videos. They use them for movies, and they use them for tourist
So it's
flights.
sort of a workhorse helicopter.
Exactly.
Basically, yeah.
It does everything, right?
Yeah.
It does everything. And again, a turbine engine, which is more reliable than some helicopters, are piston, like, for example, the Robinson R-44 helicopter. That's a very common piston helicopter, but piston engines operate a little differently than turbine-powered aircraft. Again, turbine aircraft engines, which are also used in helicopters, have less moving parts, so they're much more reliable.
Yeah.
But this may not necessarily have been a problem with the engine if it's throwing blades. You start throwing blades.
What does that mean?
So in other words, the big rotor blades,
Yeah.
if one disconnected from the structure, the main structure that holds the rotor blades together, I think there's 4 blades, rotor blades on top of the helicopter.
Sure, yeah.
And you have a couple in the smaller blades in the back, right, on the tail rotor. So if it was flipping either the tail rotor blades, or more significantly, if it was flipping the big blades
The top one,
on
yeah.
the top one, one goes off. Now you've got a huge imbalance that's been created, which then would create a terrible vibration. Maybe that was the witness hearing the thumping noise that they said they potentially heard. That imbalance then can potentially grow, and now you have more parts of the helicopter that can start coming apart.
Yeah, so just to reset the scene, if you're just tuning in right now, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, at least 6 people dead in a helicopter crash, according to the Associated Press. Among those dead, children that we just learned from our colleague Linda Schmidt. So certainly, really a very dark day. This crash only happened around 3:15 this afternoon, 3:17. And just from the video we've seen, something went horribly wrong in that helicopter, and it just plunged straight into the Hudson River. Right now, it does not appear there's any survivors, at least 6 people dead. We don't know exactly how many people were on board, but really with that type of helicopter, there couldn't have been much more than that, just to give you an idea of how quickly that helicopter went down.
And with that video that we saw with the point of impact, I mean, that was so difficult to watch and see, and just how powerful that impact was. So this helicopter was seen upside down, in the Hudson River around 3:40 p.m. What are we seeing?
And we're looking
here
at
now?
an FDNY ambulance, and they have a stretcher. They're loading someone onto that ambulance on our screen. As we then pan away from that, you can see that's the helicopter, that's the NYPD boat, that's the scene where this all took place at 3:17. Obviously a massive emergency response. And I mean, the reality is you're in the best hands in the business here. If something goes wrong, this is who can respond to it better than anyone. But
and it's all
the
happening
video
near
we
that
just saw.
Holland Tunnel,
Yep.
ventilation,
the ventilation
shaft as
thing,
well.
right? Yeah, on the
So-
Jersey City side. So it just, unfortunately, from everything we're learning, it just looks like the people in that helicopter didn't have a chance once whatever took place, which we don't know what happened, but things went wrong in a hurry. And now we are hearing from the AP reporting 6 people dead, including some children. So certainly just a very horrifically sad afternoon.
Does this impact flights in the area as well?
Probably not so much because the arrivals going into Kennedy Airport would be off to the east, and the arrivals going into Newark would be coming in from another direction. Sometimes the arrivals for LaGuardia fly up the Hudson, and then they make the turn to the right. To the east to try to land at LaGuardia. But they're usually, when that happens, they're at a much higher altitude. So this just could potentially be affecting other helicopter traffic that would be normally going up and down the Hudson. Again, this might be restricted airspace now. General aviation aircraft that also transit it's called the Hudson Corridor, and there are rules that applies. If you're going to fly up and down the Hudson River, there are rules you have to adhere to. So there might be a temporary pause to that now.
Yeah. Right, so it doesn't shut down the airport traffic, but it shuts down
because they're going to be arriving at a much higher altitude, and they won't be down this low. So it wouldn't be a problem there.
So now it's the investigation into how this happened, what exactly happened, and we've been piecing together what may have happened. With perhaps the propeller blade breaking off, hearing these booms, what we've seen with it free falling to the water. But it's that investigation now. Is hopefully there's black box. Hopefully we have some information.
I mean, the thing about this area too now, every building's got these HD cameras. We're going to be able to see this. Investigators will, from every perspective, angle. We're going to see the whole thing over time and probably get a much better picture of what went wrong. Right now, it's just devastating though to think of what took place here.
And
With
just people with their phones, they see something in the sky, they get the phone going, and so you're absolutely right. We're going to see a lot of video perspective come out from different angles, which may shed light on what actually happened.
And again, right now we don't know, who owns this helicopter, exactly what type of helicopter it was. We're conjecturing about, whether it was tourist helicopter, something like that. But we just don't know right now. There's a lot we don't know. We hope to learn in the coming hours. But of course, the headline, again, as you see, 6 people killed in this helicopter crash, which took place around 3:15. Is Meredith Gorman waiting for us? Does she have? Not yet. Okay. This is tough. This is a tough one, no doubt about it.
So the helicopter seating arrangement, right? There's 2 seats up front. Usually the flying helicopter pilot actually sits in the right seat, versus we normally think of being in the left seat. And then in the back, it's what is called club seating.
Gotcha.
Where the seats face each other.
All right, Meredith Gorman is actually joined by a couple people on scene right now. Let's go to her and see what they have to say. Meredith.
Steve, I'm here with Vanita, who lives on the 8th floor of this building, which is overlooking directly down into where this helicopter crashed. And you mentioned that you heard a sound when the crash happened. What did you hear?
Again, I was working, but it was such a loud noise. It felt like something crashed into the water. So I just looked around outside my window, and at the moment I didn't see anything. But after some time, I saw there's a yellow board on the water there. So I saw that, and I'm like, what's going on? And then I saw helicopters coming in and out. I came down. I saw a lot of cops, and I saw ambulances. I knew something was going on. Then I inquired, and they said it was a plane crash, like a helicopter crash. But
And you said the sound that you heard, it almost was distinctly like a crashing noise.
It was like I said, for me, I felt like it was a crash. That's why I'm like, oh my God, this is really loud. What exactly happened? That's why I came down. So it felt like a crash.
And you told me at first, living in this large, high-rise building, you thought maybe something hit your building.
Yes, yeah, I thought that's why I was scared. You know, I'm like, because I live right by the water here. So yeah, just making sure nothing happened to the buildings.
And now when you came down here and you came to this walkway area, were there a bunch of other people who saw this happen or heard this happen, wondering what's going on?
Once I got off the building, I saw a few residents talking about it. And yeah, I just saw a few residents out here.
And now, as the rescue operations got underway, did you see anything?
I saw ambulances coming in and out, so I can't see clearly what's going on, but there are like ambulances and yeah, people helping there. So,
well, thank you so much for sharing what you saw with us, Steve.
All right, Meredith, thank you very much. Again, a lot of people in that area hearing booms and kind of piecing together what's going on. And, you know, we're going to get an idea soon.
That does keep coming up. We keep hearing
the
that.
Sound of the crash.
People heard something horrible happen to that. And then, you know, the video we've seen, it seems like that helicopter was already in really bad shape before it even made impact with the Hudson River. And we saw, you know, earlier, we're not going to show it anymore, but we saw it hit the river really fast and hard. That thing just fell right out of the sky. So that's the whole story now, you know, beyond the loss of life, which is unimaginable in and of itself. What happened to this helicopter to make it fall from the sky so quickly?
Yeah, if pieces of the helicopter started coming apart in flight, that's you know, clear indication, if that indeed was the case, that it didn't, it really, at that point, would have no chance of making a safe emergency landing.
And you can even tell, you know, now we saw how active the rescue operation was when we came on air an hour and a half ago. Now you can see that helicopter is there, no one around it right now. So presumably they've recovered the bodies, I would assume, at this point. As by this point too, they would have a much better idea of how many people were on board. You know, were they all accounted for, things like that.
Because earlier we were seeing just a lot of boats searching for and seemed to be recovering, rescue, and now it seems like everyone has moved on to, what do you call that, the shaft area now?
Right, yeah, and I do our colleague Sharon Crowley in the newsroom with an update now from New York's Mayor. Sharon.
Yeah, that's right. Mayor Eric Adams, of course, one of the first responders to this situation, and we're just hearing now from him saying his team is on the scene of this heartbreaking and tragic crash in the Hudson River, where 6 people are now reported to be dead from the Associated Press reports. Now, we are expecting to have a press conference, including with Mayor Adams and all the emergency responders as a standard, as soon as they are able to do that. And as we've been telling you, this is a situation, a rescue situation that's happening on both sides of the river, both New Jersey and the FDNY. NYPD and the Coast Guard, as Linda Schmidt reports, all involved in this, as well as the NTSB. So we're expecting to have multiple press conferences and get some information as soon as they are able to give it. But since this is all just unfolded since 3/17 till now and changed very rapidly, as we saw, and then we saw some of those dramatic and heartbreaking pictures, you can see it's taking a minute to get the emergency officials together to brief the media. But yeah, that's the latest that we know. Mayor Eric Adams on the scene and responding to this emergency as well.
Yeah, still so many unanswered questions, and obviously an investigation like this, a fatal helicopter crash where something clearly went so wrong so quick on the helicopter, is going to take a long time, but there will be a preliminary report. We'll probably have a much better idea, you know, in the coming hours, days, and whatnot, long before the final report is issued. But
yeah,
boy, there's just so much to figure out about what went wrong here. And, you know, even in that area, we've heard from multiple people saying they heard this massive bang before the crash. If you think of how busy it is in that area, you've got the river traffic, you've got the West Side Highway, you've got people running, walking, everyone's in their headphones. I think at this point, for something to even capture people's attention in such a busy part of the city means it really, you know, really stood out and was loud and awful and catastrophic, which unfortunately, as you see, the results bear that out. 6 people dead, including some children.
Well, if they were in a radar environment, so they'll be able to track where the helicopter originated from, and they'll also will likely would have reporting its tail number, right? It's its registration number, so they'll know then who owns the helicopter. Where is it registered?
Yeah. So they presume they know all that now. They haven't
do.
told
the
us
FAA
yet,
probably
but
does because that data is there, and you know that data is actually available to anybody if you if you know where the helicopter originated from, and if it was getting radar targets. If it was a radar advisories, we'll call it. Anybody can find that online, but again, it's knowing where did it originate from.
Okay.
It may have just departed, maybe it's coming back into land. If it was a tourist helicopter, hard to say.
Okay, well, we've got Jessica Formoso now on the scene of the pier. Jess, what can you tell us?
Natasha and Steve, we're here at Pier 40. We just arrived, and I have to tell you, the west side blocked. I mean, every emergency crew possible, FDNY, NYPD, the city's management team just arrived here as well. You can see just the traffic building up on the west side, but I'm going to step out of the way here so you guys can take a live look. One of those rescue boats just coming up here to the pier, offloading. But as you've been reporting, just a tragic situation here on the Hudson River. We now know at least 6 people are dead, and a source of mine telling me children were inside that helicopter. Of course, what's happening here, we are waiting for officials, FDNY, NYPD, and the city to give us an update as to what went down, what happened, if they know the ages of the children, how many children were on board, how many adults. But here it is, all hands on deck here.
Indeed,
we have seen emergency crews.
Jessica, we
ahead,
appreciate that update. It's coming on 5 o'clock now. If you are just joining us, you're watching the Fox 5 News at 5. We're in continuing coverage, as you can see on your screen. We are on the scene of a deadly helicopter crash on the Hudson River that took place at 3:17 this afternoon.
Yeah, the Associated Press reporting 6 people have died. This all happened around 3:15 this afternoon. We're still getting details at this hour. As you saw, Jessica, we have a team of reporters covering all different angles of the story. At 3:40 p.m., the helicopter was seen upside down in the water, and then tragically an hour later, we learned that 6 people had died. We're getting reports that some of them are children. We're piecing this together. We know now from the FAA that this was a Bell 206. Linda Schmidt reporting that propeller blade had broken off. We had video showing that this helicopter was just free falling into the water.
And we do have some new video just into our newsroom. Let's play that and give us a new perspective on this terrible, deadly crash. Wow. You can see the blade. It's like the plane. The helicopter's like on its side. You know, we're looking down on the top of the blades, from what I could tell. From
look at that.
Yeah, right. It's like
Is that the blade?
That looks like we're looking at it's like it's going down into the river.
Splash zones.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's one right ahead of it too.
Yes.
You see that it's circling out of control, falls into the water, but then just shortly right there you got another zone as well. Is that the helicopter?
That potentially could have been the helicopter, which went down faster because the blades were still spinning.
Wow.
Is what it appears. Again, just speculating, I'm looking at this brand new video, 2 splash zones. And again, if indeed the blade separated, you can see that the blade kept spinning, but the helicopter dropped from underneath the blade.
Yeah,
the blades.
And from a different angle, I said it before, it looked like the helicopter had already come apart before it hit the river. And this sort of only goes to sort of prove that out a little bit. I mean, just a devastating situation there.
We have an aviation expert on the phone right now. JP, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so we just saw video then of a propeller blade spinning out of control, falling into the Hudson River, and then just a little bit in front of it, another splash zone. Can you walk us through what you think it may have happened, just kind of listening to this information? Not sure if you've seen that video yet.
No, I haven't seen the video, but if you're talking about the rotor, which is the main blade, and this is a Bell 206 single engine turbine, carries normally 1 pilot and then 1 empty seat alongside him and 4 passengers. Been on the U.S. Army list for many, many years. But if the articulating where the 2 blades connect, it's a 2-bladed helicopter. But if that articulating head actually separated from the aircraft was doomed. There's no possibility of that aircraft ever have made a normal type of landing. It was going to crash.
Yeah, that's what we've seen from the video that continues to come in. That thing just plunged straight into the Hudson River, as we continue to see. It looks like there's some sort of recovery rescue operation, a new boat moving into the area. I think this looks like the one that's going to pull this doomed helicopter out of the Hudson River potentially right now. But no, everything you said lines up with the video we saw. Something clearly went horribly wrong, and then this helicopter just plunged from the sky. And there were, as you mentioned, Nick, 2 different splash zones. What does that say to you, JP Tristani, the idea that the debris was in 2 different places by the time it landed?
Well, I've seen a rotor blade separate from a helicopter as a test pilot, even as a fleet marine pilot. That blades could be thrown easily because of the rotary strength a mile or so. So that's not surprising that the blades would still be turning in the air, much like you see these little things that come down off of trees, these little tiny helicopter elements. And then the helicopter itself, the main body, to go straight down because there is no lift in that body of that aircraft. The thing to find out that it was a tourist helicopter. It looks like there were 6 people on board and possibly 2 or 3 of them were children. So we looked at this years ago, many moons ago, when you had a series of helicopter crashes in the Hudson River and all the FAA tightened up the rules. But the possibility of a tourist landing in the water upside down and releasing their seatbelts and escaping from that helicopter, I would say there's probably a 90% failure rate. Where would they ever get that type of training? Now, Navy and Marine pilots are trained to go both fixed wing and helicopter rotary wing. If they land upside down in a sea state, they're trained to be able to remove their safety belts and egress from the helicopter or fixed wing aircraft, or troops carried also in a troop helicopter. They're trained to go underwater, be upside down, and then very normally their operation is to get that seatbelt off. But if you expect a group of tourists, and particularly babies or children, well, that's impossible. That's ridiculous.
Absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Just to kind of pull out a little bit here, when you first heard this news, what was going through your head?
The first thing I heard from the news was that a helicopter crashed and it was upside down in the water. The type of helicopter it was not ascertained. I pulled that up just by doing a quick search. But to me, there was no transmission from the helicopter pilot of an emergency, so he probably, as normal helicopters do, fly at low altitudes. If something goes wrong and they can auto-rotate, when I speak of auto-rotate, you're disconnecting that rotor from the main engine, and the aircraft can actually, almost like making a glide approach. Think of your car driving down the street and all of a sudden the gas pedal jams and you can't control it. All you do is slip it into neutral and the engine is still running, so you still have power to the brakes, steering, and you go off the road. Well, I can disconnect the clutch of a helicopter blade if it's connected, and then the rotor blades keep spinning. The aircraft has forward movement, and you can make an auto rotation to generally safe landing. In this particular case, though, when you throw a blade, one blade or the entire head, no, you're just a falling wreck. You don't have a chance in hell.
Yeah.
JP, it looks like it's the entire head that came apart when you look at the video.
That's really extraordinary. That fully articulating head, which means that angry palm tree goes up and down, back and forth. It changes blades. The blades actually flex, and they also rotate for maximum lift as they go forward and back. The aerodynamics of a helicopter was probably the most difficult that I ever experienced as an aeronautical engineer. And basically the formula is tremendously long, and then you just cut it off and say, okay, let the test pilots work on it. But the very fact that the entire head would come off the helicopter, that's a massive failure that even in a database, you're not going to find any of that, even in a combat operation.
Yeah, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. So the body of the helicopter was in the water way before the propeller, it looks like, from that angle we're looking at, which is sort of exactly what you were saying. All right, we're going to go. JP Tristani, aviation expert, we appreciate your perspective. Stick with us. We're going to go right now to another colleague of ours, Linda Schmidt. She is live on the east side with what she's seeing from her perspective.
And Linda, I don't know if you have this from your NYPD source, but 3 of the 6 dead are children. That's what we're learning now from the NYPD.
Yeah, well, I had heard from law enforcement sources and some others as well that the 6 who were on board that helicopter, all of them are deceased. And at least one, maybe more than one child was on that plane as well, which would lead you to believe that maybe it was a family. And again, we don't know at this point, but it would lead you to believe that maybe that it was a family on that plane, on the helicopter. And we don't know right now if it was if they were tourists that were here, or maybe somebody who lives in Jersey and they were coming over and flying and just taking a scenic flight, you know, on what was a much nicer day a few hours ago. Now, you know, the skies have filled up with the clouds and it's raining and everything, but who knows what they were doing on that helicopter. But it would lead you to believe that it is in fact a family. At least one family on that helicopter. You know, but you think about the massive emergency response here. I mean, the FDNY, of course, responding immediately with boats and divers and medics. They still had divers in the water as of about 20 minutes ago. I am hearing that they have pulled the 6th body from the water at this point. So at this stage, I don't know if the divers would remain in the water because like I said, sources are telling me that there were a total of 6 aboard that helicopter. And then you also have New Jersey State Police, Port Authority, the Coast Guard, the NYPD. On the New York side here, they've got a staging area that's about, say, 20 blocks from where we are right now, 15, 20 blocks from where we are. But they are not too involved in this operation. It was really the FDNY and the Coast Guard and people on the Jersey side responding to this. And you can see over my shoulder, you can see the flashing blue lights that are over there, but there are fewer flashing blue lights. And the last time that you guys came to me, it looked like that there were at least 4 or 5 boats over there with flashing lights, and it's hard for me to actually see because it's across the river. But now you can see there's like maybe 1 or 2 over there on the Jersey side where the lights are still flashing. But when you take a look, well, first of all, JP Tristani, one of the best in the business whenever you want to talk, in addition to our very own Nick Gregory, what a godsend he is in a situation like this and with these type of emergencies, because he is an expert just like JP. So you couldn't be talking to 2 better people when you talk about either a chopper crash or anything involving a plane. But when you look at that video and just see the body of that helicopter plummet, just drop into the Hudson River, I've never seen anything like that before. And then you see the propeller just flying, flipping around, and it's separated from the helicopter. And that's what I had heard, that the propeller had broken off of the helicopter and had split in half.
Yeah.
It's a great point that you make, Linda. We talked to JP. He said that, Nick, that this is something that's extraordinary. It's very rare for that to happen. Just kind of paint the picture.
If indeed the whole head came off, that is very extraordinary. I mean, that's a huge failure, because you got to think about this. The giant, the rotor head, and then the 2 blades that stick out from the middle. So potentially flipping one blade. Also, again, not a particularly common occurrence. It has happened. But for the whole, if indeed the whole head separated, I mean, that's just. I don't know of another. I haven't read of anything like that have ever happening, and maybe we're just sort of again speculating based on what it looks like on this video, where you see the blades
still see it spinning.
Spinning exactly, and is it 1 blade or 2 blades? Again, it's hard. It looks like it's.
I mean, it looks like the whole thing.
Looks like it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just spinning around.
It's I mean, it's interesting to think, how did the
How did it
propeller come
apart?
off, and then the body of the helicopter went down so fast, and that thing would sort of stayed up in the air a little bit longer and came down pretty far away. And I think to touch on a point Linda made, which I think is a good point to make right now. Obviously, we're seeing 6 people dead. You can see, for all intents and purposes, the rescue effort is over, the recovery's over, the rescuers are out of the water. All we see left is that helicopter, that doomed helicopter upside down in the Hudson. We know 3 children among those being reported of the 6 people killed. Just a horrible tragedy, likes of which we have not seen around here in a long time. I see my colleague Jessica Formosa. She's at Pier 40 by the river. What's things looking like from your perspective, Jess?
Yeah, so you guys just mentioned that it seems like the recovery is over, and that's exactly what we've been seeing since we arrived here. Divers coming out of the water, FDNY, NYPD, a boat just, docked over here on this side, and they came out. So yeah, what Linda and what you guys have been saying, it seems like the rescue is now over, and sadly, I can report now from a police source here on scene that three children were on board that helicopter that went down here on the Hudson. Just sad news to report. We know that there were some adults as well. My source couldn't specifically say if it was a family, but from reports out there and what Linda was saying, it seems like that's what it was. We're trying to get more information. We're waiting for FDNY to hold a presser in the next 30 minutes or so. That's what we're being told. But here, I mean, the scene, you can see ambulances, FDNY, the city management team also arrived here on scene. We have some FDNY paramedics here leaving as I speak. But like I said, we now know 6 people were on board that helicopter. 3 of them were children. Of course, we're waiting for that press conference to start so we can get more information as to were these Americans, were these tourists, is this a family? So we're hoping to get those answers for you guys as soon as possible. But here, sadly to say that we have seen the divers come out of the water, so the recovery efforts are now over.
Yeah, no, a sad milestone in this effort, which is not even 2 hours old. Jessica, thank you. This crash happening at 3:17. So really, just difficult to think about that 2 hours ago. These 6 people were alive, doing some sort of leisure craft over the Hudson, doing a little tour, presumably. We don't know that for sure, and now 6 people reported dead, including 3 children. And if we go to that next shot, I see we've got queued up. It looks like they've got that big, heavy boat in the water, which presumably this now pulls the helicopter out. And there are a lot of people that need to take a look at this helicopter, see exactly what took place here, because something went grievously wrong with this in a way we don't see.
Well, looking at that
often.
video, you can see where the NTSB is going to focus on.
Yeah.
The ability to recover that either the whole rotor head or pieces of it, and anything else that flew off the helicopter at that point that allowed it to just literally drop so quickly. And again, if it's falling from, let's say 200 feet, I mean, a 200-foot drop into water, which is still a very hard surface.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
It's
like jumping into concrete.
It's very, very difficult to survive something like that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it does not look like anyone did with everything we've heard so far. 6 confirmed dead. It appears that's everybody who was on board, including 3 children. So, presumably that would be a pilot, 2 parents, 3 kids, potentially.
Potentially, yes.
Most
2
likely
parents, the 3 children, and again, 1 pilot up front.
Hopefully we'll be able to learn more information. We are awaiting a Mayor Adams presser, so hopefully there'll be some more information there. We do have Meredith Gorman joining us live. Meredith, any more information you can share with us since the last time we saw you?
No more real confirmed information, but from what I've noticed right behind me, we've seen a bunch of the boats leave the area. There's a lot less activity going on here, which again coincides with what we just heard about the last person potentially being recovered from the water. Again, it is quieter. There's a big boat here which looks like it may be used to pull the remaining parts of the helicopter out of the water. A big mobile command truck pulled up to the pier a little while ago and is there, but again, it looks like the divers are out of the water over here, and it also seems like they aren't really letting people who live in the neighborhood or anything really come over here much. There were some bystanders here when we first got here, but again, in terms of witnesses, most of the people who are here now didn't see this happen or hear anything happen, aside from the people that we spoke to earlier.
Yeah, Meredith, we appreciate it. A somber, sad afternoon here as we learned that 6 people were killed during this crash that took place at 3:17, 2 hours ago exactly, on the Hudson River, the Jersey side. That's what we're looking at. And as we've been mentioning, the rescue and recovery operation is over. It appears they've gathered everyone's body from the river. And right now, all we see left is what remains of that helicopter floating upside down in the Hudson River, waiting to be pulled out and to be looked at by investigators who are going to have a lot of questions about what took place here. Really, something just catastrophically went wrong and in a hurry. and this helicopter just fell from the sky straight into the Hudson River.
Both the FAA and the NTSB investigating right now. We have Sharon Crowley also joining us. Sharon, what can you tell us?
Yeah, I have some new information, Natasha and Steve. I have just learned from the mayor's office that he's going to be having a press conference in just about 10 minutes at 5:30 there on the scene. And also, we're getting reaction from across the river. As I said, emergency responders from both sides of the river reacting to this helicopter crash in the Hudson River. And New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy has been briefed on the situation. And I'm just going to read from some information I'm getting from the governor's office of New Jersey. He says New Jersey State Police and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey are adding to the emergency response effort there. All this unfolding, as we said, I think it bears recapping 3:17, and then emergency responders were there at 3:40 when the helicopter immediately underwater, and we saw some of that video of it just really seeming to fall out of the sky, and Linda saying that the propeller appears to have come off of the helicopter before it came down and just went right into the water there. Now, we're also hearing from the police are asking you to stay off the West Side Highway by Spring Street, because that is where all this emergency response is taking place. And there are witnesses on both sides of the river taking videos. And we've heard some of them tell us during our coverage here in the last hour that they heard a loud noise before this happened. And by the time people went to their windows or looked, the helicopter was already in the Hudson River upside down. And the Associated Press, of course, reporting that 6 people have died. 3 of them reportedly are children. So, and the pilot as well is what we are hearing. So we are still getting this information. It's 5:19 now, and coming up in the next 10 minutes or so, we may be hearing much more from the mayor and other emergency officials in Lower Manhattan along the Hudson River. So we'll send it back to you upstairs.
We appreciate it. All right, thanks, Sharon. We're going to go to Kyle Daly now, an aviation expert, joins us on the phone. Kyle, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks so much for being with us. Obviously, this is a terrible afternoon. Everything we see, it almost defies description. What's your reaction to the circumstances that we know about so far about this deadly helicopter crash?
You know, helicopters are very risky. There are so many moving parts, unlike airplanes. There are just so many possibilities. But I do want to say we have that heliport that is over in Kearney that does everything from New York City tours to corporate helicopters. That is a heavily traveled helicopter route, and that corridor there on the Hudson River is just, you know, helicopter after helicopter all day long, all operating under visual flight conditions. But the fact that, you know, we have fatalities reported so quickly leads me to believe that there was something catastrophic, a catastrophic failure of some point. Normally those helicopters, when there's an engine failure and not a failure of a strategic component on the helicopter, most of those are equipped with pop-up floats, and they can do a maneuver, what is called an auto rotation, which pretty much safely lands them on the water with minimal force, usually resulting in everybody on board surviving. In some instances, the helicopter might flip over, but the fact that we have so many fatalities leads me to believe that there probably was some sort of catastrophic failure on board of that helicopter. And one or multiple components of the helicopter.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the propellers came right off the top of the helicopter. I mean, it's everyone who's seen this video is just stunned by it. This thing just sank like a stone. It came right down into the river. So yeah, the scenario you laid out is something we have seen in the past. This is something I can't recall seeing. Yeah. This just everything went wrong.
So what there is there are thousands of parts on a helicopter, all rotating simultaneously. Every screw on a helicopter is what is called torque striped. So when you're doing a pre-flight check, you are verifying that the striping is aligned. If anything is out of alignment, it could indicate something coming loose, especially on that helicopter blade assembly. So obviously something came apart which caused that blade to separate, and it could have been multiple failures or something as simply as bolts coming loose on that assembly.
It's a terrible situation, Kyle. We appreciate your expertise on what might have happened. We want to go to Jessica Framoso now, who is live with some new information about the passengers aboard this helicopter. Jess, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yep, you guys can hear me, Natasha and Steve.
Yep.
I spoke to some sources here. Yep, so I spoke to some sources here on scene. They're telling me that they can confirm now it was the pilot, 2 adults, and sadly 3 children, all of them on board that helicopter. You know, you have to stop and think what was going through their mind, if anything, at that moment when it crashed. It seems like it all happened so quickly. They tell me that they're not sure if this was a family, but it seems to be that that's what it was, a family here. We're trying to get more information. We're seeing some officials arriving here. We know the mayor's on his way, and NYPD will be having a presser along with the mayor. The city management team is also here, FDNY, and we're hoping to get some more information as to who these victims were. Are they Americans? Are they tourists? You know, we've been hearing that possibly a family touring here in New York City. We do not have that confirmed just yet, but hoping to get that information, more clarity as to exactly what happened, because it's been over an hour now that we've been on the air, and already, you know, things here have died down since we arrived. You guys are taking a live look here at the Hudson River. You have seen some NYPD flashing lights on the boats there, all the way down there close to the Jersey side. But when I arrived, I saw many of the divers come out, NYPD, FDNY paramedics, all getting out of the water, which obviously that indicates that that's it. The rescue is now over, and we sadly know that 6 people are dead.
Yeah, no, it has to be so difficult for those divers that go in the water. You know, they're tasked with the job of, you know, unfortunately finding these bodies and bringing them back to land so they can be laid to rest. Just, you know, you think of the trauma they go through, you know, on a daily basis responding to things like this. It is, it's quite the situation.
Jessica, can you kind of
actually saw them? Go ahead.
Have you been talking to any bystanders there? I mean, I guess what's the mood like? What are people saying out there?
So we're in Pier 41, and we came here. This is only access for media and officials. No, you know, residents, New Yorkers are allowed in this area here where we are. But when we showed up, we did see some onlookers, obviously, you know, coming and trying to figure out what's going on. But no one was here when it happened. We didn't find anybody like Meredith who said, oh, we heard a loud boom. We didn't hear any of that whatsoever. We know one of the mayor's teams here, so we know the mayor's on his way, and we're hoping to get information from the mayor as well as NYPD there. We see officials walking behind. But yeah, we didn't get that sound from, like Meredith did, of people
Jess,
telling us I heard a boom or not.
Jess, thank you. We're actually we're gonna clear you. You're gonna head to the press conference right now. I understand that's imminent. We'll send you there, and we appreciate your insights. And we're gonna head over to Meredith Gorman on the other side of the river. She's on the Jersey side with the update on what she sees. Meredith.
Hi there. So I just spoke with another witness. She didn't want to come on camera, but she told me that she lives on the 32nd floor of this high rise that's right in front of me. It overlooks the pier where this helicopter went down next to. She told me she was on a work call when she heard this happen. She said it almost sounded like an engine backfire. She actually said she didn't hear a crashing sound. She heard, again, what sounded like she thought was engine failure. She said her dog picked up on it sooner than she did. The dog heard it, ran to the window, was kind of freaking out. She looked out the window, didn't really see people reacting much as they were walking along these walkways here near the pier. And she said, again, it sounded like engine failure, which is interesting. Again, she's on the other side of the building, so she couldn't see the helicopter landing in the water, but that's what it sounded like to her.
Yeah, no, that is interesting perspective, because we've hearing that time and time again from people. Clearly, it made some sort of massive sound that stood out enough to people for them to take notice. You're talking about this person on the other side of their building. You know, think of how loud that must have been. And we've seen the video now, you know, this dramatic video of this helicopter just plunging from the sky so fast. So something went really wrong, really quick. Clearly made a sound that a lot of people noticed. But I mean, honestly, now that we have the benefit of seeing this video, by the time you even look up, I mean, this thing was already in the river. You didn't have long to catch it. I mean, so we're hearing more from people who heard something go wrong than actually saw it. And when you see this video at all, unfortunately, it makes perfect sense.
It's unbelievable. I mean, the entire propeller, like both blades were completely detached from the body.
It seems to be that the whole rotor head disconnected from the helicopter, which is really unheard of. If that indeed is what we're seeing here.
I mean, is it that bolts can really come loose like that?
Well, you know, you're supposed to check those, and
Yeah.
you know, I mean, every pilot pre-flights their aircraft, including helicopter pilots. So you know, there's things you're supposed to check to make sure that your bolts are secured and things are aligned and what have you. Otherwise, you're going to not take the flight. But even if you do the check, that doesn't mean that something can't happen in flight, right?
It's a risky flight.
Yeah,
Well,
I think that flight expert made a great
you know,
point. Helicopters, a lot going on. You
Well,
know,
as Kyle, our guest earlier, pointed out, you know, you have to think about all of these moving parts trying to get away from each other at the same time, which is an interesting concept,
an
right?
interesting
If you think about
concept,
that, right?
Yeah.
Versus, you know, a regular fixed-wing aircraft.
Yeah.
that don't have
playing
that.
everything in the right direction.
Exactly. So there's a lot of energy being dispensed there.
and a lot that can go wrong.
Concept of torque,
Yeah.
right? Things spinning, centrifugal force.
Yeah.
So.
Alexander, who are we going to go to now? We have Sharon. Okay, yeah, let's go to Sharon Crowley. Sharon, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Natasha, I'm getting some more information from eyewitnesses to this happen before the helicopter went into the water, and I'm hoping Nick will listen to this because maybe as a pilot, he can give us some insight into what exactly they saw. This is from Bruce Wall. He saw the helicopter literally falling apart, is the quote, in midair with the tail and the propeller coming off. The propeller, he says, was still spinning without the aircraft as it fell, he said. And another woman, Leslie, was looking at it happen from Hoboken, New Jersey. She saw the helicopter spinning uncontrollably before it slammed into the water. She says there was a bunch of smoke coming out of it, and it was spinning pretty fast as it landed in the water really hard. And Nick, I just wanted to ask you about this testimony from Bruce Wall, who's saying the helicopter falling apart in midair with the tail and the propeller coming off, and that the propeller was still spinning with the aircraft already, I guess, detached and falling into the water. It's really quite horrific here. And as we now know, 6 people dead, 3 of them children, and it appears the pilot also died aboard that ship. And we're going to be hearing from the mayor very shortly. But Nick, I thought you might want to weigh in on just what they thought they saw.
Yeah, well, you know, what that eyewitness saw, someone can confirm that by looking at the video, because you can see the rotation, the blades spinning. The helicopter's already in the water at this point.
And the tail came off too.
Now that's interesting because that's something new. Why would
the
that
previous
happen?
video,
you
looked like
mentioned
that.
that.
It's like this
Right.
thing's already apart before
Now,
it even hit
did
the
tail
water.
come off on its own? Did the blade separating slice the tail off?
Right, yeah.
That's to be determined. But
that would be the most logical, probable scenario, right? If the whole top propeller came off, it looks like it almost, you know, hit the back of the helicopter, and then it just fell.
Exactly. But once the whole top of if that whole rotor head came off, that was it right there, because there's no lift anymore being generated by the blades.
So it's free falling.
It's free falling, and then potentially spiraling down because of the momentum that it was.
Looked like it was going so fast it didn't even do that.
Yeah. I mean, you could sort of see there was a little bit of a spiral in that one video we had earlier, but it definitely would be uncontrollable at that point.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Meredith Gorman now. Meredith, you've been with some bystanders and some witnesses. What more can you tell us?
Sure. So again, the witnesses are kind of few and far between out here, but we have noticed that this ship that has a crane looking attachment to it has moved closer to the wreckage of where this helicopter is. There were some people standing on the boat a few seconds ago looking over at the helicopter. It seems like, you know, that's in place to help lift the wreckage out of the water whenever they decide to do that. I know we've heard that the last victim was finally pulled from the water just a short time ago. So again, since that happened, this ship that looks like it will lift the wreckage out of the water has pulled up to the pier, and it looks like they are kind of congregating over there.
Yeah,
Natasha.
that's unfortunately where we are in this situation. And Meredith, thank you for your perspective.
Kind of recovering the pieces at this
It's
point of what happened, the
getting
devastation.
the helicopter out. That's the last thing there is to do. And then I feel like I remember on the Miracle on Hudson, they take it up the West Side Highway, they take it to some facility somewhere.
Yeah, they'll take it somewhere to analyze what happened and try to collect all the pieces, since it indeed looks like things came catastrophically apart. on the helicopter, so they're going to have to try to find those pieces. I mean, the one young boy that we interviewed earlier said he saw the blade floating down the river. The blades, I think that was his comment. So there's a hint right there where they're going to be searching to try to recover, pieces of the helicopter to try to put it back together again and figure out what went wrong.
And really right now it's just eerily quiet on scene, looking at that helicopter upside down where it landed after something went catastrophically wrong on board at 3:17, so just a little over 2 hours ago. To bring you up to speed, if you're just joining us now, 6 people dead, 3 children after this crash that took place a couple hours ago, Hudson River, Jersey City side. We're looking, that's the Holland Tunnel. To give you the air vent above it, to give you a sense of where this is all taking place. We're waiting to hear from Mayor Adams, public safety officials, what we know about more. But unfortunately, I think things went so horribly wrong so quickly. We really learned a lot in a short amount of time. There's not much mystery as to, we realized this was worst case scenario pretty early on, and 6 people now are dead as a result.
Yeah, on that note, let's bring in Kyle Bailey, aviation expert. Kyle, when we were talking to you last, we kind of we learned that the propeller blade broke off, and we even heard from a witness that maybe the tail had also broken off, and there were a few different splash zones there in the water. What can you tell us? Kyle, are you on the phone with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. So with that tail boom being completely off, leads me to believe that it most likely would have been sliced off by the main rotor blade or blades at some point. So based on the G situation, if you could imagine if the helicopter climbing rapidly or ascending, those blades flexing downward, but it probably would be the opposite, where the helicopter would be descending, and based on the G-forces, the main rotor could slice that tail boom right off. And that's what you would see, is you would see that tail rotor still spinning. So that's the key point that eyewitness saw. And also keep in mind, if this was a simple engine failure, I don't want to say engine failure is a non-event, but usually an engine failure results in most of the occupants surviving if it's executed properly. But I think, there was a major catastrophic failure. And again, that tail boom, if that witness was, in fact, saw that correctly, would lead me to believe that was sliced off by the main rotor of that helicopter.
Kyle, it seems like the whole rotor head itself separated, which I think is such a rare occurrence, right? I mean, I don't know how common that is. I'm not an expert on helicopters. I'm more of a fixed wing guy, but the video we see, it looks like potentially the whole rotor head came off.
Yeah, and that would be a result of just so many hundreds of parts on there. And not only do you have parts, but those parts are constantly in motion and constantly subject to excessive vibration. So if something was overlooked on a pre-flight check, and like I said earlier, every single nut and bolt on there is torque striped with a stripe, so it's visible to the human eye on pre-flight. If something is coming loose or came loose, you would see that straight stripe kind of like separated. So it could very well have been possibly something overlooked on a pre-flight, and something as simple as one bolt coming loose on that assembly could prove catastrophic, possibly what we're seeing here.
Yeah, that's the answers we're going to be looking for in the days and weeks to come, for sure. We do appreciate your perspective, and we are waiting for an update from the mayor, public safety officials. Again, they're not going to probably be able to tell us too much as far as anything along those lines, but they will be able to sort of confirm what we've been hearing, reported by other sources, including the AP, that 6 people on board are dead. 3 kids. It appears right now to be the pilot.
2 adults.
Yeah, 2 adults and 3 kids. And let's go back to Linda Schmidt. She's on the east side, close to near where this crash took place. Linda.
Yeah, and just to give you some perspective here as to what it's like to report on a catastrophic event like this. We're in New York City, 8.4 million people, and Most people are just going about their lives as if nothing's happened, and most of them don't even realize what has happened. We're along the walkway here on the Hudson River, and everyone who is coming by, nobody has any idea what's going on. They're stopping us and saying, "Why are you guys here? What's happening?" And they're looking around and they're not seeing anything. And then we have to point over my shoulder here and say, "You see where those flashing lights are over there? That's where a helicopter crashed into the water about 3:15, 3:17 this afternoon." So just to give you some perspective here, it's not like everyone knows exactly what's going on and everybody is tuned in, because people are going about their lives here on the New York side because they have no idea what has happened. Meanwhile, right across the river, a helicopter goes into the Hudson River and 6 people are killed. Like you said, it's the pilot, 2 adults and 3 children, and it looks at this point as if it's a family, although we don't know that for sure, and that they are possibly tourists, and they were out and they were going to be taking, you know, a tour along the Hudson River, maybe going along the East River, which is very popular for people to do. I've actually done that myself, been in one of those helicopters many years ago, and going along the East River and then going over into Jersey, and it's a beautiful way to see the city. But as JP Tristani, the retired pilot that you guys were talking to earlier, as well as our very own Nick Gregory has said, you know, helicopters can be very dangerous. It's not like being on a major jetliner. It's can be a fragile, what do you say, vehicle? What's the word that I'm looking for, guys?
Yeah, it only takes one little thing to go wrong, and you can have all sorts of problems. No doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it goes plummeting down into the water. Now, Jessica Formoso, my colleague, she is up by the Pier 40. We're near Pier 34. They're going to be having a news conference up there shortly. The mayor has been briefed, obviously, on everything that's going on. The fire commissioner is also going to be there, as well as NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch. She is going to be there. FDNY had a massive response. They had boats out there, they had divers, they had medics. State Police with New Jersey was there. They had the Coast Guard there. The NYPD is on this side, you know, on the New York side. And then they also had emergency crews. I'm sorry, hon, we're in the middle of doing something here. Thank you, thank you. As I said, you know, people walking around, they're just amazed at us standing here trying to figure out what's going on. And they come up to us and get right into our faces sometimes. So that's what was about to happen here. So I had to interrupt the young person who was walking by. But anyway, a massive emergency response here today, as there always is. But of course, we're going to learn much more information from the news conference, although we have learned so much, Steve, as you were saying before, in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, a testament to how, unfortunately, how horribly wrong this all went. I know normally it takes so much longer to figure out, but the evidence here just revealed itself so quickly as more and more video came in. And Sharon, I believe, is joining us now.
Linda, thank you.
Yeah,
let's actually go to Meredith, because Meredith, you have a live witness with you right now.
I do, yes. Hi, guys. So I have Liza right here. She lives, again, in this high-rise building that overlooks the wreckage of the helicopter. Now, she was home. You were home with your entire family when this happened, and you said your son was woken up by the crash. How old is he, and what happened?
Yeah, so I was actually working right across the river, right up in Hoboken, but my husband was home, my nanny was home, and my 2-year-old apparently heard a loud boom, and they didn't know what it was, but it turns out it's the helicopter that crashed. So I don't really know what I'm going to say to the baby when I get home now. But my husband was home the entire time, and he said that he also heard a loud boom. Wasn't sure what it was. Turns out it's the helicopter. One of my good friends in the building said that she saw debris falling from the sky. We didn't know it was a helicopter, and yeah, it's very scary. I just went to go get my groceries, and I see like little particles of the helicopter in the river. It's terrible.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I see you holding the grocery bag right here. You're saying you just saw helicopter debris in the river moments ago.
Like, literally, like, just now. Like, white little pieces. Like, they were saying that they're, like, belongings of the passengers. It's terrible. Terrible. Terrible.
So it didn't exactly look like, for example, a helicopter rotor or anything. You couldn't really make out what it is unless you knew what happened?
Really loud. All I know is there was a loud boom, but, like, I didn't see it go down, but it turns out that's what happened, and now there's particles in the river. So it's very scary.
Yeah, and in terms of just talking to people that you know in the building, were people freaking out once they...
Everyone's freaked. My husband called me and he was like, helicopter went down. I'm like, what? Because my office doesn't have a window, so I was just like, what? And then I came outside and it's insane. Like, there's so many... I can't believe this happened. It's terrible, really terrible. But yeah, there's just loud boom, debris falling, and now I see pieces in the river. So I don't really know what I'm going to say to my 2-year-old when I get home. You know, it's scary.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eliza. Again, there's some updated news for you guys. There's still helicopter debris floating in the river right now.
Yeah, that's what we're taking a live look at. You can see that helicopter debris there. Is that the ship that's going to be lifting it up? That's a bit of a crane that's going to be lifting it up. And we just heard from that witness who was with Meredith. I mean, yeah, there's so many people, middle of the day, they're working. She also talked to a woman who's on the 33rd floor of a high-rise and who was able to hear this. The dog heard it. I mean, this was quite the scene. And then now we're looking at the video, and it's unbelievable. I mean, Nick, you've been flying for so long. I mean, to see something like that, the propeller, the entire rotor,
that's the
still
amazing
intact.
thing. Yeah, if throwing a blade is bad enough, but if the whole rotor head, so the top part of the helicopter where the 2 blades are attached to, if that whole thing separated, I mean, that is just very rare.
Well, I mean, it all makes sense with the video and the eyewitness accounts we heard. It seems like the helicopter came apart and sort of the top propeller crashed into the back of the helicopter.
Sliced the tail off.
It'll be interesting to see,
That's when they
lift it up, if we will have the ability, if we'll still be able to see it when they lift it up, what's left of it.
Yeah.
So
before it hit the water, we saw there wasn't too much left of it. I mean, in that other video,
you'll get a view of it. Again, if both blades are gone, the tail's gone, and that's probably how the tail was lost, because the blades just slice through it. If it was separated that way, just slice right through it.
I feel pretty confident saying that just from everything we've seen and heard so far. And we're getting close to an update from city officials, the mayor, the police commissioner, fire commissioner, et cetera, bringing us the update on this horrific crash.
It's a tragic day. I mean, think about how many people, again, we don't know if this was a tourist, a helicopter, but there's, like Linda was saying, there's so many sightseeing operations.
All right, let's listen in now. Yeah, here comes the public safety officials with the update.
Commissioner Jessica Tisch and Emergency Management Commissioner Zach Isco. We are here on the scene at Pier 40 on the west side of Manhattan, where earlier today a passenger helicopter crashed into the Hudson River. Our response was swift and coordinated. We have the FDNY, the NYPD, the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner here on the scene assisting with rescue efforts. New York City Office of Emergency Management was coordinating efforts on the ground with our public safety agencies. As our state and federal partners, including the FAA, the Port Authority, and the United States Coast Guard, the National Transportation Safety Board, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and our partner agencies in New Jersey. When an emergency like this happens and strikes, this team responds with expert speed and professionalism. I want to thank all of our brave first responders for assisting in the rescue efforts and the ongoing investigation into this tragedy. For more information, I would like to turn it over to Mayor Eric Adams.
Thanks so much, DM Daughtry. Our hearts go out to the family of those who were on board and all 6 who were on board of the helicopter. It's almost reminiscence of the plane going down here on the Hudson River, but thank God we didn't lose any lives back then. It's still fresh and it's still new. The investigation is ongoing, and we have the entire family members, we're lifting them up in prayer. Here's what we know at this time. At approximately 3:17 this afternoon, we began receiving multiple calls for a helicopter that crashed in the water. These calls generated the response of many agencies, as the Deputy Mayor Daughtry stated, including FDNY, NYPD, the Port Authority, and our Jersey partners, the police officers in Jersey as well, and the Coast Guard. 3 adults and 3 children were on board a Bell 206 helicopter that had left from the downtown skyport just about 3 p.m. The pilot and the family visiting from Spain, with our preliminary information as at this time. Members of the FDNY and NYPD harbor units arrived at the scene, and divers from both agencies entered the water. At this time, all 6 victims have been removed from the water, and sadly, all 6 victims have been pronounced deceased. Again, we're praying for the families and our gratitude to the rescuers and the courage that was displayed in their dedication. I will now turn it over to Fire Commissioner Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. As the mayor said, at approximately 3:15 this afternoon, numerous calls were received for a helicopter crash in the Hudson River. We have FDNY assets right up the road here, and we launched our boats immediately. This operation was a joint operation between the FDNY and the NYPD. Our rescue swimmers were in the water shortly after the call and recovered some of the victims. We worked very closely with the NYPD divers on this, and I think this tragic day does indicate just how the spirit of cooperation between the NYPD and the FDNY is alive.
Good afternoon. The mayor covered most of it, but perhaps I have a few details to add here. Obviously, this is an ongoing investigation, and all information that we'll provide is preliminary and subject to change. At approximately 3:17 this afternoon, multiple 911 calls started coming in reporting a helicopter crash in the Hudson River near the New Jersey coastline off the coast of River Drive in Hoboken. NYPD units from aviation, harbor, scuba, and patrol all responded, with our first units arriving at the site within minutes. Our NYPD divers entered the water along with rescue personnel from the Port Authority and various New Jersey agencies. According to the manifest, aboard the helicopter were 6 people, 1 pilot, 2 adults, and 3 children. NYPD divers pulled 4 people from the crash site, and FDNY divers recovered an additional 2. Immediately on scene, and 2 more were removed to local area hospitals, where sadly both succumbed to their injuries. Names are being withheld at this time pending family notification. Here is what we know about the flight, and this is based on flight tracking software. A Bell 206 helicopter flying for the tour company New York Helicopters took off from the downtown Manhattan heliport at 2:59 p.m. The aircraft flew south before turning to fly north along the Manhattan shoreline up the Hudson River. At 3:08 p.m., the helicopter reached the George Washington Bridge and then turned again to fly south along the New Jersey shoreline. Shortly thereafter, the aircraft lost control and hit the water just a few feet off the coast of Pier A Park in Hoboken. The cause of the crash is currently under investigation.
A few questions. Go ahead. What's the ages, please, of all the occupants?
We don't have that information at this time, and we're holding it to a complete investigation.
Go ahead.
You know what's got the recovery?
One at a time, please, ma'am.
Could you tell us about the recovery of the helicopter? Is the helicopter submerged in the water? How did divers find it?
I'm sorry, Sam?
How did divers find the helicopter? Is it submerged? And what happened to how we can recover it?
The helicopter hit the water, we believe, inverted, and it was the cabin piece was visible above the water.
Mark, go ahead.
Do you know why the family was in town? On vacation?
No, still preliminary investigation.
Jen?
Any background on the pilot? Any past incidents with him before? Perhaps anything with the crash?
And it's still, as you see, this is fresh. All this is preliminary, and we're going to look into that.
Do you have any idea of how old the helicopter was, the age of it? And also, we had witnesses telling us that the helicopter seemed as if to stop in midair, and there were pieces of the helicopter falling off before it actually hit the water. Have you heard of that? Do you know why? As part of this investigation?
You have anything on this?
Yeah, I think the entire incident is under investigation by the NTSB and the FBI and obviously local authorities as well.
Is that something though that you have seen, that you have heard witness accounts of?
It's consistent with 911 calls and witness reports.
Last question, go ahead. I just wanted to ask the genders of the people that were involved, the children especially.
Still an investigation. We want to be cautious about releasing any information until we're able to notify family members and the communication with the consulate.
Yeah. And before we close, just lastly, when myself and Commissioner Tucker arrived on the Jersey side of the Hudson River, we were met by the first responders and they told us they did everything they can to try to save these victims. And you can see the trauma on their face. They did everything they can, and they wanted me to make sure that I made that public. They really tried their hardest. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
All right, you've been listening in live to Jessica Tisch, Mayor Adams, Jack Iscol talking about what happened here. So we now know that this was a tourist helicopter, Bell 206, that took off 2:59 p.m. went south up the Hudson, and around 3:08 it reached the George Washington Bridge before going down 3:17. 3:40 is when emergency responders arrived, saw that it was upside down in the water, and began some rescue efforts there. Unfortunately, this was, I believe, a family from Spain, tourists from Spain. One pilot is dead. All 6 are dead. 1 pilot, 3 children, 2 adults. And that's the information we have right now. The FAA and the NTSB are investigating. But it was quite the situation with the helicopter just coming apart. We saw at one point that the entire propeller came off, appears to have sliced the tail before the actual body of the helicopter came plunging down into the river.
So Nick, let me get your opinion on this. Obviously, with knowledge of flying, they didn't exactly say, but this should have been an in-flight structural failure is what we're seeing happen, correct?
That's what we're suspecting based on the video and eyewitness reports. Again, that one video sort of tells the story because you can see 2 splash zones in the water, the first being the actual body of the helicopter, but then moments later was the spinning blades. Yeah. And so it appears that potentially the whole rotor head, there's 2 blades, there you go, you can see that on the video there. There's 2 blades attached to the rotor head, and you can see them almost spinning in tandem there.
Did anything stick out to you, though, what they were just talking about right now, that's something that you were like, I didn't think about that, or that was a surprise?
Not at the moment. I mean, seeing this video, without that rotor, without those 2 blades, the helicopter doesn't have a chance.
I think we have a clear timeline now with what they just said in this press conference.
Yes, because again, they took off, as you mentioned, at 2:59, turned briefly southbound, then headed up the Hudson, made it to the GW Bridge, a very typical tourist route. Then they come turn. When you fly the Hudson, as you fly north, just like right-of-way rules in a car, you stay on the right side of the river. When you fly south, you again fly on the right side of the river, depending upon your perspective, again, north or south. So a very typical tourist flight. And again, when you see this, that potentially the whole rotor head came off, and we heard reports that the tail was missing. Yeah. So the rotor blades themselves may have sliced off the tail, and now you're talking about a helicopter with no lift falling from potentially 300 feet, let's say. It's going to hit the water hard, and evidently the eyewitnesses said it hit the water potentially inverted.
So a lot of people are going to be asking now, how did this happen? Why did this occur? You have these tours taking off nonstop here in the city, and that leads you to a couple different things. And getting your opinion on this could be mechanical malfunction or material fatigue or improper maintenance or like malfunctioning defects on the helicopter. Is there any world where this would have been caused by a potential bird strike?
No, because again, thinking where we're looking at the malfunction, right, up in the top of the rotor blade there, so the birds wouldn't have survived to get in there at that point. You know, a bird strike would be more of a windshield issue or being sucked into a jet engine, which is traveling forward that way. But in this particular case, that wouldn't be the issue. The issue is, as you just brought up, maintenance. Was there a proper pre-flight inspection? I mean, that's very important, right? I mean, we emphasize that you know, any pilot, whether you're flying an airplane, an airliner, a helicopter, a small single-engine airplane, a pre-flight inspection is mandatory, right? It's required.
Sure.
So you should be checking things out that could lead to potential catastrophic failures. Now, that will be part of the investigation. What's the maintenance history? Was there a problem with the bolts?
I was just going to say, I heard you bring that up earlier this past hour. There could have been a bolt loose, which could have led to something like this happening. Walk us through what a pre-flight check looks like, because how can you catch maybe a bolt that's loose?
So you know, again, I fly mostly fixed-wing aircraft. I have a little bit of helicopter time, but every pre-flight is the same, because you are going to check critical areas of the aircraft or the helicopter that could have structural or failures. So in this particular case, they would be looking at the rotor blades themselves, connected to the rotor head. As one of our experts was reporting, that they make it easy to see these because they're color coded, they're marked, so you can see from a distance, are they aligned? Or is there a misalignment? If there's a misalignment, what's the misalignment? And then are you going to reject that flight, write it up for maintenance to go and take a look at it? So, but you're going to check the critical systems of your aircraft to make sure that none of those are going to have a problem.
Yeah, so we now know the tour company is New York Helicopters, and so I imagine now they're going to check and see, is it accredited? What were the inspections that went on before it took off? This is a very rare instance.
Well, and they're also going to look at the manufacturer of the helicopter, right? So it's a Bell 206. So they're going to look at Bell 206s and say, you know, has this happened to other Bell helicopters around the world? Because it's a very popular helicopter. So that will be another part of the investigation. That's how, you know, then when you see something like this happen, potentially then they may, if it's a flaw in the helicopter, they may then ground all the Bell helicopters until they can figure out what may have happened.
I was going to say, glad you're here because there's a lot more questions to ask you. But right now, if you're just joining us, it is 6 p.m. on this Thursday. We're following this tragic helicopter crash. 6 people dead here in the Hudson. We've been talking about it for quite some time now, but we're going to turn things over to Jessica Formoso, who is live on scene.
She's joining us now. Jess, what can you tell us? What's the very latest?
Natasha and Bianca, I'm here at Pier 40. The press conference just wrapped up and we have new information to share with you. We're going to start with the victims. We know 6 people were on board that helicopter, the pilot, 2 adults, and 3 children. This was a family from Spain that was here visiting New York City. We know that there 4 people were pulled out of the water dead. 2 were taken to the hospital, but then were later pronounced dead at the hospital. I'm going to step out of the way here so you can zoom in to see that the rescue efforts here have concluded. They said it was around 3:17 when calls started to come in to 911 saying a helicopter was in the Hudson River. The officials here telling us that FDNY has and NYPD immediately, even Port Authority divers got into the water, and they want to make something clear that those divers really tried. They tried to save everyone, but it was impossible. We know, as you guys have been reporting, that this was a helicopter from New York Helicopters, a Bell 206. It had left the helicopter port. It was before it crashed. It was reached the George Washington Bridge heading back, and that's when it lost control and hit the water. Of course, the cause of this is still under investigations. Officials say they didn't give us the ages of the children or their genders. They're pending notifying the family. But again, this was a family from Spain visiting. They were touring the city, you know, got on the helicopter trying to enjoy the skyline, and unfortunately they lost their life today. We don't know the ages of the children. but the commissioner, the FDNY commissioner and the police commissioner saying that a lot of calls came in saying that they saw this helicopter circling, lost control, and the next thing they saw was that it was in the Hudson River. That's the latest information we have here from Pier 40, and we'll send it back to you.
All right, Jessica, thank you. We have JP Tristani joining us now. JP, we were on the phone with you in the last hour. You kind of said that this helicopter was doomed upon just, entering into the water, just what we saw in that video. You listened to that press conference live with Mayor Adams. Anything that stuck out to you in the information that they shared?
No, not really, because they don't know anything at all about what happened to the helicopter. They're just making their normal statements of grievance of a family that lost their lives in a tragedy. So they're not the engineers. I would prefer to listen to Nick Gregory and his excellent presentations. And that is where the facts are. That hub of the helicopter where the blades are attached to at the end of that shaft. If you look at a helicopter and you see the shaft that comes up from a little bulge, that's the transmission. And on top of that is the hub where the blades connect. Actually, there's a nut there that we used to call a Jesus nut. And so you want to make sure that that nut is secure. And as Nick explained, you have also lineups that you can check during a pre-flight. Yes, but you could have also in this particular failure is just a fatigue failure of that particular nut. It did not misalign. It could just be a fatigue factor of the nuts that connected. Now, insofar as that helicopter fuselage being impacted, it's logical that if the blades leave that particular shaft, that the helicopter is going to pitch forward, which for an instant puts that tail assembly to the helicopter blade. So that has nothing to do with it. The minute that helicopter lost those blades, it was doomed. The rest of it is ancillary damage, either being struck by the blades or anything else. But basically, you've got a failure in that hub, and that's going to be one of the forensic investigations performed by the NTSB when they recover everything.
JP, one more question before we toss to another reporter on scene there. Do you know what kind of warning signs, if any, that a pilot might get before something like this happens?
Yeah, a normal helicopter has vibration, but if there's something that snaps like that, then nut shearing, for instance, you're going to get an increase in the normal vibration of that vibrating machine. But it doesn't matter because it's going to be instantaneous. And unlike a fixed wing aircraft where the emergency procedures are two, one is by just a normal procedure that's memory. In 47 seconds, you're required to act. And then you go to a checklist. There's no checklist for this. This particular amazing occurrence to me, without much of a database, as much as I've flown choppers and tested them, helicopters are basically a unstable aircraft without the autopilots on, unlike a fixed-wing aircraft that has stability. So I prefer doing stability and control on a fixed-wing aircraft, fighter, transport, than a helicopter, which is inherently dangerous. But whatever happened there, the pilot had no chance. Once that blade left, there's nothing left for him to do. There's no recovery possible. The stick is ineffective, what you call stick, I call a cyclic. It's just impossible. We have to assume the minute those blades left.
Yeah. All right. JP, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. We want to go live to Meredith Gorman now, who was on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River near the crash site. Meredith, what can you tell us? You've been talking to witnesses all afternoon.
I've been talking to witnesses all afternoon, but I actually just walked along this pathway along the water, and if you go over around the corner and down a bit, there's a bunch of debris which is presumably from the helicopter floating in the water. I saw two leather what looks like seat cushions from the helicopter floating. I don't know if you can see. We're having our photographer zoom in on this photo that I just took seconds ago on my phone. There's also what looks like a water bottle floating, a bag, and it also looks like there's a bit of an oil sheen on the water around here, which again was likely from the helicopter, Natasha, but there's a lot of debris around here. We haven't really seen police or authorities come over here and start collecting that debris yet, but there's a lot in the water along the shoreline here.
Yeah, that's absolutely horrible to hear. Just all of the debris, and the moment of impact just kind of really tells a story when you saw a video of just the body of that helicopter free falling and just how much of a powerful impact that was into the water.
Meredith, since you've been there talking to people there on scene, what was it that they heard or that they experienced as this tragedy unfolded?
Yeah, so everybody that I spoke to who heard it lived in this high rise that is overlooking the area behind me where the helicopter ended up crashing into the water. They all said they heard what sounded like a crash. One of the women who I spoke with lives on the 7th floor. She said she almost thought that something crashed into her building because the crash sound was so loud. And then I also spoke to another witness. She said that the crash woke her son up from his nap. She didn't hear it really because she was on a work call in the other room. Her husband heard it. You know, they spoke with other people in the building, and people are really shaken up about this. Again, there's been a lot of people coming around here and trying to check out, you know, what's going on. But again, the crash happened so fast. They heard a loud boom, but people really didn't see anything hit the water because, again, it all happened so fast, Natasha.
All right. Meredith, thank you very much. I want to bring you out live. You can kind of see that crane there, the ship waiting to pick up what's left of that helicopter upside down in the water there. If you're just joining us, 6 people have died in this tragic helicopter crash into the Hudson River. We got a better idea of the timeline when we were listening live to the mayor. We know now that this was a tourist helicopter carrying tourists from Spain. It took off at 2:59 p.m. and then around 3:17, that's when the situation happened, and around 3:40, that's when emergency personnel arrived to the scene and they were able to see that this helicopter was upside down. We came on air sometime around, I would say, 4 o'clock or so. And at that point, piecing it together, then we saw the video, which was quite shocking, of what looked like the blade coming apart from the body of the helicopter, and then we're starting to see, you know, what's left of it, putting together all this information. And let's go to Sharon now, who's also been following this. Sharon, any new details that you can share with us?
Yeah, well, we just heard from the mayor and the police commissioner and other emergency officials at a news conference that ended and wrapped up just a couple of minutes ago. And really, as you mentioned, a tragic situation that unfolded this afternoon starting at 3:17 p.m. We learned that 6 people are dead, 3 of them children, a family from Spain, as well as the adult pilot. And we learned that the helicopter, as it came apart in midair and fell into the Hudson River shortly after it had been up sightseeing perhaps by the George Washington Bridge. It ended up crashing sort of near Hoboken, near River Road there, River Drive, I should say. We heard from the mayor, we heard from officials. Let's hear what they had to say upon finding out exactly what happened.
Our hearts go out to the family of those who were on board and all 6 who were on board of the helicopter.
Close just lastly, when myself and Commissioner Tucker arrived on the Jersey side of the Hudson River, we were met by the first responders, and they told us they did everything they can to try to save these victims, and you can see the trauma on their face. They did everything they can, and they wanted me to make sure that I made that public.
So this emergency operation is really involving people on both sides of the river, New Jersey and New York, and also the FAA and the NTSB. I can tell you we have also learned that the water temperature, 45 degrees, and we heard the police commissioner say that the helicopter crashed upside down. So really little chance for survival, it seems, for all 6 who perished on this helicopter. This, of course, will be an ongoing investigation. They did not release the names of the 3 children and 3 adults who were on board. We do know that the helicopter was made by New York Helicopters. We are awaiting response from them and, you know, for more information on this. But it does appear that they have stopped looking for survivors and are just gathering the debris now, Bianca and Natasha. But, you know, really heartbreaking to hear. And I think that's one of the reasons that this press conference was pretty brief, and it was 10 minutes or so instead of an hour, and they didn't take a lot of questions because really they're still trying to notify next of kin and obviously find out how this could have happened.
Yeah, Sharon. Well, we appreciate you breaking it down for us. We're going to turn things over to Jessica Formoso, who's there on the scene. Jessica, you heard one of the officials say that there was trauma on the responders' faces as obviously they were trying to get someone alive out of that water, out of that helicopter. That didn't happen, and then this is what you're left with. Obviously a tragic scene here. Tell us what you know, you've talked to some people there on scene. What is it like there being near this accident?
Well, Bianca, I can tell you that it's sad. It's sad. It's somber. You know, we just heard from officials here, and how you described it perfectly well. These first responders, they're trained to do this, right? This is what they do. But the commissioner there is saying that they could not believe. And when they were trying to save, and he's made it clear, they tried to save every single life, but they just couldn't this time around. We know 4 of them, they pulled them out of the water dead. 2, they rushed to the hospital and they were pronounced later on dead. We know that this was a family from Spain, 2 adults and 3 children. They did not give us their ages or identities, including the pilot. We know, as you've been reporting, this was a tourist Bell 206 helicopter from New York Helicopters. It fell apart midair, plummeted into the Hudson River. The police commissioner saying the call started to come in around 3:17, multiple calls, and the fire commissioner said that you know, some of the assets, FDNY assets, are really close, so they went right into the water trying to find survivors, and clearly that was not the case. I'm going to step out of the way here so you guys can take a look of what's left here. This is now this is an investigation. You know, recovery efforts completed at this hour. They also told us that by 3:08, so it left the heliport around 2:59-ish. By 3:08, the helicopter had reached the George Washington Bridge. It was, I guess, heading back this way when it lost control and hit the water. The police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, saying the helicopter hit the water inverted, and I think that's what made it difficult, right? When it went upside down into the water to try to get those victims out alive, which clearly that did not happen here today. But again, we now know this was a family who was visiting from Spain. They are notifying family members. Also, I know that they're working with the consulate here. There is a Spanish consulate here in New York City. They're working with them, and hopefully we'll have more information later on today or even tomorrow of who these victims were.
All right, Jess, thank you very much. I want to bring in Nick now. I mean, a tragic situation, but I just want to underline how rare of a situation this is for that propeller to come apart and still be spinning with the 2 blades. Just kind of fill us in and how much of a rarity this is.
It's very rare. I've never really seen anything like that happen. You know, to have the whole rotor assembly, which sits on top of the helicopter, of course, come apart. And as JP pointed out correctly, what will happen is when that happens, the helicopter pitches down. So that's why, as it pitches down and the blade's coming apart, it potentially slice the tail off.
I see.
But again, this type of catastrophic failure is not. I've not ever heard of this happening. It's not to say that it hasn't happened, because the Bell 206 is a very popular helicopter flown all over the world.
Right, we talked about that.
Yeah, so, you know, and known as a fairly reliable helicopter as well. But I mean, they're going to be investigating, of course, this particular helicopter, maintenance records. Was there something there before that got fixed? Maybe it didn't get fixed right. We talked about fatigue. You know, was there what are called airworthiness directives. So the FAA puts out things called airworthiness directives, which are, some are mandatory fixes, some are you fix it at the next inspection, some is you just have to look at it every 100 hours or 200 hours that you fly. Was there a airworthiness directive that pertained to this model helicopter? Was that directive complied with? So they'll get into a deep dive into the history of this particular helicopter and overall reports of any issues like this with other Bell 206 helicopters.
And those reports is going to take some time for it to get back.
Exactly. Usually, a full report from an NTSB takes well over a year before it will
we
get
heard
released.
JP say something about flying in a craft like this, and he was like, "This is not something I want to do. This is," and it almost sounded like this was dangerous. And in the past, since you've been here for a while, there have been some crashes here in New York. 2018, 5 people dead, sightseeing heli and crashed in the East River, and then 2019, a helicopter crashed in the Hudson River. This was after refueling, but that pilot survived. So,
and there was another big crash in 2009, which changed the flight rules along the Hudson River because you had a plane that took off from Teterboro, a fixed-wing aircraft, a Piper, low-wing aircraft, and a helicopter was coming up underneath it. So they didn't see each other. So the helicopter was underneath the pilot's wing. He couldn't see the helicopter. The pilot of the helicopter couldn't see the fixed wing, so they collided.
How dangerous are these helicopters then?
Well, I mean, there's definitely a risk in flying them. I mean, as we were talking earlier, and you speak to some of the other professional helicopter pilots that have been on our program this afternoon, and you have all these parts moving, trying to get away from each other. I mean, there's a lot going on in there, a lot of moving parts. And it's quite a skill to be able to fly a helicopter. I've flown a little bit. I don't have my helicopter rating, but I have got some helicopter time. It's challenging. I mean, I've been flying fixed-wing aircraft for 42 years. So, and I'm kind of with JP. I'd rather stay in a fixed-wing aircraft. I have a better chance potentially of gliding to safety. I mean, we discussed something that helicopters can do called auto rotation, and where again you can sort of disengage the transmission, the clutch from the engine itself if there's an engine issue going on, and then the actual torque that the blades are still generating, you can auto-rotate that helicopter to a safe landing somewhere. But you have to have the blades to do that, right? So in this case, the blades completely came off, so there was no lift at all now being generated. So as JP had pointed out, they didn't have a chance.
It was doomed. So now the FAA and NTSB are investigating, and we do have a retired Navy captain, aviation and search and rescue expert joining us on our air right now. Armin Kurdian, can you hear us, Armin?
Got you loud and clear.
Okay, so we now know that this was a tourist helicopter. What is the information? What are the questions that you have, as you hear all this news unfold and as we listen to the situation and the timeline that was laid out by the mayor?
Well, obviously, the first thing is just absolutely awful. You have an entire family go down with that helicopter. So, we have to keep them in our minds and our hearts. But as everybody's talked about, this looks like some kind of massive catastrophic failure from which the pilot had no chance to actually recover from. So, excuse me, what they're going to try and find out is, was this a failure of material, like did the shaft actually crack or did it break? Or was there some kind of, excuse me, so sorry. Was there some kind of loosening or did something come loose? One thing led to another that eventually everything sort of vibrated apart over a period of a few seconds, or was it one massive break?
Captain Kurdian, maybe walk us through what a proper search and rescue response looks like for a crash like this. What happens within the first 5 minutes after impact?
We've seen so many crashes in the Hudson lately, or you saw up in D.C. over the water. In these massive metropolitan areas, the response is fast, it's massive and immediate. Plus, simply the fact there's plenty of sea traffic on the river to begin with that's going and checking everything out. So you're going to send in your folks to first make sure the area is safe, that there's no fire, there's no additional floating debris which would cause a hazard to your divers. The water temperature is going to dictate how many divers you need, because a diver can only go under that water for 20 or 30 minutes, even in a dry suit, 59 degrees. Not a lot of time to stay conscious underwater. So once you do that, you want to make sure that it's lit, that you can see the accident and then recover the bodies or recover the individuals if, by some miracle, they managed to survive.
But in terms of survivability, is there ever a scenario where someone could survive a mid-air mechanical failure like this?
Armin, are you still there? All right, we might have.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. once those rotors come off, there's absolutely nothing you can do. You are completely along for the ride.
Yeah.
And the way a helicopter crashes into the water, once it hits the surface of the water, it's going to invert, even if it lands or comes down vertically, because the top of the helicopter is much heavier than the bottom. It's going to completely flip over, so they're going to be hanging on their straps.
And then how long might it take before we get some answers as we're referring to the FAA and TSB and investigating?
Honestly, for a situation like this, where I believe that the helicopter, I think you're going to find it mostly intact under the water. Once you pull it out and put it on a bed, you're going to want those inspectors looking at it literally right then and there, because they're going to want to see if this was a clean break or if not. If it was a clean break, or excuse me, if it was, say, something that just got dislodged or came loose, that you don't see any physical parts that were broken or sheared that might have happened airborne, then that's going to lead you to one thing. Perhaps it was a maintenance issue. But if something physically tore or physically broke, and the engineers can quickly determine, looking at those brakes, whether it was something that was done on impact or whether it was something that was done in the air because the torque and the moments of inertia simply weren't working with each other airborne, they'll know that very quickly. So I bet you within about 24 hours of that helicopter coming out of the water, they're going to have a fairly decent idea of what happened.
All right, Armin, well, we really appreciate your expertise. Thank you for joining us. We want to go out live to Meredith Gorman now, close to the crash scene there in New Jersey. Meredith, what can you tell us?
That's right. Well, first of all, there's been a little bit more increased activity in terms of boats moving around the site of the debris that's still in the water behind us. Again, the debris has not been lifted out of the water yet. It is still submerged, and it looks like the legs, if you will, of the helicopter are still sticking up out of the water. But when I walked down this walkway, again, just a few minutes ago, there is what looks like personal belongings that may have belonged to the people who were in the helicopter floating around here. We saw what appears to be two brown leather seats that, again, you would assume came from this helicopter floating in the water. And there's also what seems to be an oil sheen on the water near where the helicopter crashed. Again, I talked to people that live in these neighboring buildings. A lot of them were home, working from home when the crash happened. They all heard a boom. They said it woke some of their babies up. Their dogs heard it and were startled and, started barking. And it's very somber, and people are really sad here. And again, when I first got to the scene earlier, I spoke with a young boy named Leo who was walking this walkway after school with his mom, and he actually saw a lot of the helicopter debris, and he took a video of it that he shared with me. Take a look here.
I mean, so first of all, a really important thing I saw, so I was walking to school, like my school's in Hoboken, so I was walking through that terminal, and then, like, I didn't hear anything. I just saw, like, a lot of these people were standing at the pier, they were, like, watching something, and then I saw all these boats, and then I'm like, what happened over there? And they said a helicopter crashed. So I'm like, yeah, that's really scary. And I continued down from my way to school, and then I saw this man filming something in the water, and at first I thought, like, recording litter in the water at this time? Seriously? But then I realized those were actual helicopter pieces. Yeah. So I joined the recording.
And what did you see? What did the helicopter pieces look like? You mentioned it might be like the rotors?
Yeah, so it looked like the rotors. They were like big, thick, and they had like on one side, there were two pieces. So the bigger piece, it had like on one side, it was black, and then there was this like a goldish line, and then it was white. Maybe like that can help you figure out which helicopter it is from.
Yeah, that's right. Again, people are just getting home from work, it seems like, around here, and we've seen a lot of people walking their dogs, people with families just coming to take a look, again, at the helicopter wreckage, which is still in the water. There's been some increased activity, as I said, with police boats and FDNY boats coming over close to where this big crane boat that it's presumably going to pull the wreckage out of the water is, but again, it's still in the water. People people coming over to look. And again, a lot of people can't believe that they're seeing, again, presumably wreckage and personal belongings from this helicopter right along this walkway. And I guess you would call it 10 feet, I would say. Not 10 feet, maybe 30 feet from these high-rise buildings. There's wreckage in the water floating. So police have not removed anything yet in terms of the materials from the water, guys.
Yeah, it's inconceivable. It's heartbreaking. Meredith, thank you. I mean, this is a sightseeing helicopter. So many of them taking off, and there's so many helipads around that area of the Hudson River, too. And so it is truly, truly a heartbreaking afternoon on the Hudson River. We want to go to Jessica Formosa, who's been live along Pier 40. Jess, what are your sources telling you?
Bianca, Natasha, well, we now know that recovery efforts are over. They pulled the bodies out of the water. 4 of them were pronounced dead here at the scene. 2, they rushed to the hospital but later died at the hospital. We know that this was a family from Spain. They were visiting 2 adults and 3 children and also the pilot, all dead at this hour, we have learned. I'm going to step out of the way here because I want to show you there's not a lot of activity, but if he zooms in here, you're going to see there's some flashing lights, some NYPD rescue boats still here. But throughout the last hour, 2 hours, all the divers have come out of the water. We know that the call came in at 3:17 p.m. Multiple calls to 911 saying that there was a helicopter in the water. The police commissioner says the helicopter crashed near the New Jersey coastline here in the Hudson River. FDNY assets, we're told, were nearby, so they launched their boats right away. Rescue swimmers went right into the water. And, we have to really give them credit, the work that they do. They are trained to do this, but yet today, this was traumatic for them. They went into that water trying to save these young children and their family members along with the pilot, and they couldn't do it. They tried their best. They said they did everything they could there to save at least one life, but that was impossible. This was a Bell 206 helicopter from New York Helicopters. We're still waiting to hear from them. We did ask the mayor and the police commissioner and other officials here if they knew anything about this pilot. Was he an experienced pilot? Was he not? When was the last time this helicopter was inspected? Those questions they could not answer, saying that this is still under investigation. But we know at 3:08 the helicopter had reached the George Washington Bridge. It was turning around, but shortly after, within, they say, seconds, that's when the helicopter lost control, crashing into the Hudson River upside down. And I think that's what made it difficult to try to get that family and that pilot out alive. But we're live here at Pier 40. I can tell you the mood here, very sad. We have seen, we saw divers come out, paramedics come out of the water, and you can see it in their faces, just how traumatic this has been, how sad. You can only imagine. We don't even know if that family and that pilot had a chance to even think or see what was happening. It happened so quickly that what went through that family's mind, those children, we don't know their ages, we don't know their gender. So a lot of questions, we know that they have not revealed their identities yet, and that's because they're waiting to notify the family. Again, this is a family from Spain. They were visiting, so they may not have any friends or relatives here at all. They're also working, I know, with the consulate to get that information out to their families. So hopefully we'll have more information on the victims in the coming hours or even tomorrow. But that's the latest I have here from Pier 40. Ladies?
Yeah, Jessica, you just painted a pretty heartbreaking picture there. To put yourself in these people's shoes as this is happening, it's terrible. It's terrible to think about. And we just wish their families the best, people that know them, as they're probably processing this right now. Jessica, we're going to turn things over to Linda Schmidt. We're hearing that she may have some information on the helicopter.
Let's actually go to Sharon Crowley. She's got a statement from the helicopter touring company, New York Helicopter. What are they saying, Sharon?
Yeah, we are finally getting some information here. The CEO of New York Helicopter Tours just issuing this statement saying, quote, "It's devastation. I'm a father and a grandfather, and to have children on down there. I'm devastated. I'm absolutely devastated. I haven't seen anything like that in my 30 years in the helicopter business. And we learned just a few minutes ago from a press conference with the mayor and the police commissioner and others that it was New York Helicopters who owned and operated the helicopter that is involved in this deadly crash in the Hudson River where 6 people were killed, a sightseeing, a family from Spain. We don't know their names yet, as Jessica just said, 3 of them children. Let's hear now from the police commissioner who spoke just about a half an hour ago.
A Bell 206 helicopter flying for the tour company New York Helicopters took off from the downtown Manhattan heliport at 2:59 p.m. The aircraft flew south before turning to fly north along the Manhattan shoreline up the Hudson River. At 3:08 p.m., the helicopter reached the George Washington Bridge and then turned again to fly south along the New Jersey shoreline. Shortly thereafter, the aircraft lost control and hit the water just a few feet off the coast of Pier A Park in Hoboken. The cause of the crash is currently under investigation.
We also heard from Mayor Adams describing this as a heartbreaking tragedy. And before I send it back to you, I just want to reiterate something we heard from an eyewitness who said he saw this crash in midair. And I'm going to quote him for you. Bruce Wall said he saw the helicopter falling apart in midair with the tail and propeller coming off. The propeller was still spinning without the aircraft as it fell. So a lot of people in Hoboken probably saw this happen if they happened to be looking up at the skies this afternoon about 3:17 or a few minutes thereafter when all this started to unfold. We also heard from New Jersey Governor Murphy extending his condolences and saying that his emergency responders are working with people, the NYPD and FDNY as well. So now this investigation likely turned over to the FAA and the NTSB as we get a little further in this.
And one of the SAR persons who's search and rescue that we spoke to not too long ago was saying that we might be able to get a report back on this pretty quickly. So we're going to see how things go. Sharon, thank you for bringing us that bit of information. Turning over to Nick now, though, I just want to make sure and clarify that weather was not a factor here.
No. No. I mean, the weather had been deteriorating as the day had gone along. The winds had started to pick up. I flew this morning, and it wasn't that bad. The ceiling was quite high. I looked at the observation from Teterboro Airport, which is the nearest airport to the crash scene, and at the time of the incident, the accident, the wind was out of the southeast, a little gusty. It was gusting up over 30 miles per hour, but the visibility was great, 10 miles visibility, and the ceiling was up at about 6,000 feet, the lowest cloud layer. So weather not a factor at all. It seems to be just something went wrong with that, with those blades, the rotor head, whether fatigue or bolts coming loose, a series of events that may have happened very quickly, one leading to another situation, and then the catastrophic failure at that point.
When you look at the water temperature, 40s to low
45
50s,
about 50, yeah.
And I just feel like it was death upon impact with just how brutal that was. But then if there was a possibility of survival with the water temps being so cold, and then just the fact that hypothermia sitting in 45 minutes. I mean, it was just a tragedy from the start.
Well, and they, if you look at the timeline, right, we're talking the accident happened at 3:17 and
2:59. So it's like 18 minutes or so.
18 minutes from in flight time. But the accident having happened at 3:17, and the first responders didn't get there till 3:40. So they may have been inverted under the water for more than 20 minutes. Yeah. And now, and again, think about that, being inverted under the water in your belts, no training to be able to get out of there, right? So just a recipe for disaster.
It's really difficult to paint that picture as you asked us to do. And I know this hits differently because there's kids involved. And Nick, you're not just a pilot, you're a dad.
Yes.
How does this land for you?
Well, I mean, it's tragedy, right? You think about losing your children. And again, something like this, if you think about training, where you do egress training, right? Where you would practice in a scenario where you dive into the water, the vehicle goes into the water, goes inverted, and you try to get out. And again, there's disorientation, there's darkness, you don't know what's going on. But here, the tragedy again, and here what potentially looks like a whole family was lost.
Tourists from Spain visiting New York.
If you're a surviving parent, it would be awful, of course, but having the potential here, what we can assume potentially maybe a whole family was lost.
Do people get briefed on any kind of emergency measures? What would happen if you land in the water? I know this happens when you take off in a helicopter. They tell you you have flotation devices underneath you, but that's about it.
I mean, there should be a proper safety briefing. That's really required. When I take a flight with passengers, even my family that's heard me give the briefing over and over again, I still give the briefing. So you have an idea of what to do if something happens and I can't help you. So a safety briefing is really a requirement, and I'm sure these professional companies, helicopter companies, as in you get a safety briefing on an airliner, what to do. I'm sure they gave them some type of a safety briefing, but does that briefing cover something like this? I mean, the briefing may be to show you how to unbuckle your seatbelt, to show you how to open the door if you have to get out. But that's assuming that you've landed somewhere safely.
And upright.
And upright, exactly. Now, they're not going to, there's no way they could brief them on an inverted impact into the water and have them respond. It's just impossible, really, to have them do it. But
with these flight companies operating daily, hundreds of them, I'm not sure, but there's quite a bit. I mean, you're over water. Manhattan's surrounded by water. Is this not something that they should talk about?
Well, again, it's probably done in a briefing if it's going to be a normal, potential off-site landing, let's say. So where, as we discussed, a helicopter, if it has an engine issue, you can sort of detach the blades from the clutch there is what we would call it, the transmission. And so now the blades are still spinning. So the helicopter pilot takes that energy that they're still generating to what's called auto-rotate the helicopter down. So he's still getting lift. He's still able to somewhat directionally control the helicopter, he or she, and make a landing upright, either in a field, in the water where the potential floats that are on the skids would then inflate, and the helicopter would then be upright. So the briefing would include, if that happens, this is what you do. If I can't, as the pilot, get back to you, this is how you unbuckle your seatbelt, this is how you open the door, when you exit the helicopter, stay away from the blades, that type of a briefing. But this type of a scenario, being very rare, really, how do you brief for that? You really can't. So.
Well, Nick, the fact that you're a pilot, your expertise has been invaluable in the last 2.5 hours that we've been on air, just uncovering this live together. We want to go to Meredith now, who is live out in New Jersey. And Meredith, you have some new video of the debris that people are now finding at this crash site.
That's right. There's a bunch of debris that is along this walkway here, which is looking out over the crash site. Again, take a look at this video that we just took moments ago. But you guys mentioned safety manuals and the briefing that they give people when they get on an aircraft or a helicopter. Well, there was actually safety manuals floating in the water that I saw myself as part of the debris. We saw 2 seats, brown leather seats, floating in the river, along this walking area. A lot of people who have come to look at the helicopter, which is still submerged in the water behind me, have seen the debris floating in the water. We saw a water bottle floating with the rest of the debris, which again you would assume came from inside the helicopter. I saw what appeared to be a bag floating, which again, likely somebody's personal belongings. And there's also a bit of an oil slick in the water, which you would think came from this helicopter as well. But again, the police and authorities haven't really retrieved any of the floating debris from this area yet, and people are just really taken aback by all of this and taking it in as they come and survey the scene.
Yeah, Meredith, I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of that debris ending up there as they're still trying to clean up this scene, a tragic scene. We're going to turn things over to Dan Rice. We talk to Dan a couple times a week up in the chopper in Skyfox HD. Dan, you do this for a living. How is this landing for you right now as you're seeing this unfold?
This is tough to watch. You know, for what we do for a living, anything's a possibility. You're prepared for it. You know, you heard about the safety briefings and everything else. I know 25, 30 years ago, somewhere in that range, I went up to Groton, Connecticut and did a water egress training to prepare me for the unlikely event we ended up in the water. When you look at that chopper upside down in the water, those yellow bags out of those gray bags, those are what we call the floats. And they're there in case of an emergency landing in the water. But what you'll notice in those bags, with the way those floats are, they're not deployed. The pilot did not even have enough time to deploy the floats. The video out there, it's scary to see that because when you see the one video from the piers where you see the chopper coming down upside down, the very first thing I see is the main rotor system is missing and the tail boom is missing. Without any rotors on the aircraft, the pilot has zero control of the situation. Everybody's along for the ride. That's scary to watch.
Yeah.
That style helicopter, that is the helicopter we fly.
I was just about to say that. So the Bell 206 is what you're flying too?
Correct. It's a Bell 206 Long Ranger 4, L4 they call it. Two big rotors on top, two little rotors on the back, single engine aircraft. It seats 7 people in it. For us, it's configured differently, but that's what it can fit.
Dan, we're hearing from a couple pilots who are saying they don't trust helicopters. They'd rather be in a fixed-wing aircraft. You do this every day. Can you explain why that fear is present for a lot of pilots?
I got to be honest now. Again, I always like to preface there, tell everybody, I'm not a pilot. I'm a reporter, a camera operator who flies in the helicopter every single day for the last 25-something years. I have yet to meet a helicopter or a pilot who's afraid of the helicopter itself. I don't know where that fear comes from because, honestly, just looking at this instance, I'm not going to speculate what happened, but it's a single aircraft incident. It wasn't there wasn't a collision. There wasn't some sort of error that way. Something happened catastrophically in the air with a single aircraft. I would assume for pilots, when you're losing the rotors, and I can't remember any time in recent history, last 20, 30 years, where we've seen a rotor come off of a helicopter. So a lot of times we hear of auto rotation. I know we heard Nick talking about that earlier. That just takes if you have an engine failure, it takes the momentum of those big blades on top spinning, and the pilot can handle the helicopter getting down to the ground. If that's missing, then you have no control whatsoever. So I'm going to assume if a pilot is saying that, and especially from fixed wing to a helicopter, a rotorcraft, that might be the fear. I'm not sure, to be honest, because I'll tell you what, I don't have a fear of getting back in our helicopter. We go back and do our job tomorrow or Monday or whenever we fly again. For us, I know our helicopter company does quite a bit of safety checks on our helicopter, a lot of maintenance. There's a lot that goes into flying these helicopters. You can't predict everything, but we haven't had enough incidents to me to warrant. I mean, we heard the mayor telling this press conference saying that the choppers are safe, and it's part of the New York experience.
Yeah.
So, it's such an unfortunate situation, and the NTSB will tell us. I mean, you heard them say, as soon as on the 911 calls, stop all traffic on the North River. That's the old name for the Hudson River. They do that to preserve the crash site so they can get as many pieces of that helicopter gathered up out of the water for the NTSB to do their proper investigation. And when they will come to us in about a year or so, with all their preliminary, probably in a couple of weeks, but they'll do their investigation and they'll let everybody know what happened with that specific helicopter.
Yeah, those are the big questions that we want to know. Dan Rice, thank you so much. We want to go to Armin Kurdian, again, a retired Navy captain, aviation and search and rescue expert. Armin, so right now the helicopter debris, what's left of it, is still in the water, and the NTSB-FA is investigating. tell us, like, what are the next steps here once they're able to take this helicopter? I mean, is there a black box in there? You know, we know that this was a touring company. What information are they looking to gather?
Chris.
Certainly, it's possible that it may have had some kind of black box or recording device to determine, you know, what position the flight controls were in, what was going on with the engine, what were the measures of torque, the engine temperature, fuel flow, all those kinds of things. Regardless, when they do pull it out of the water and bring it up, the engineers at the NTSB have done this a lot. They have looked at accidents, all kinds of shapes and sizes, and you'd be shocked and amazed as how good they are at reconstructing an aircraft once it's actually impacted. In this case, there was no explosion, there was no fire, and considering, you know, they're going to recover the rotor in the helicopter or other probably debris around the main body of the helicopter, the main fuselage. So it's very likely that they'll have at least 90% of the vehicles put back together, and I do believe that they'll have the critical parts and the critical components to actually look at. And then they have methods of looking at the shaft and the metal from a metallurgical standpoint. They'll use X-rays to look at the stresses in the shaft. They'll use X-rays to determine, you know, stresses in the airframe of the body to know how it hit. They will be able to also determine and distinguish between what happened on impact and what might have happened actually airborne at that time. And then I really believe that they'll have a pretty decent idea of what happened within the first 2 or 3 days of looking at the vehicle.
Okay.
Armin, before we head over to another reporter on scene, I just want to ask you, you've commanded search and rescue operations. So what are crews up against in a river recovery like this one, especially when this aircraft broke apart the way that it did?
You've got the current to deal with. You've got the temperature of the water to deal with. You've got visibility in the water to deal with. You've got the ambient wind airborne to deal with as well. You've got daylight, so that's a positive thing. And considering that the aircraft is the helicopter right there on the surface of the water, daylight and visibility shouldn't be a problem. When you had the accident in Reagan National, it was night, and those, you know, a lot of that sunk to the bottom. So visibility was a major issue. Time and temperature of the water is also a problem.
All right, Armin, thank you very much. We want to go to our reporter, Linda Schmidt, out there live. Linda, I have a question for you regarding just public perception. I mean, paint a picture, just what people are thinking. I mean, plane crashes, we had the one that happened in D.C. You've reported on all of this. Just kind of what goes through your mind?
Well, you know, whenever you're covering these types of things, certainly it's scary for the general public. I mean, it's scary for me as a human being and as a news reporter covering this kind of stuff, because so many of these accidents come out of nowhere, and they're like, for example, some of the experts talking earlier today, and even the helicopter pilot that you guys were just talking to, you know, to them, this is kind of a one-off type of situation, because there have not been many helicopter crashes in our area like this. And this is something that obviously, the wind out here, went catastrophically wrong with this aircraft. But helicopters, when you compare them, like Nick Gregory was talking about, when you're talking about an airplane versus a helicopter, an airplane is much safer and not as fragile as a helicopter is. But as far as the investigation goes, you know, the NTSB and the FAA, they are going to be conducting investigations. And then, of course, preliminarily, they will have results of these investigations probably within about 3 to 6 months, because that's what normally happens, and then they release a report. And then as far as a final report, that will most likely come in about a year. That's what historically has happened, whether it's a helicopter crash or a plane. But as far as the response out here, this was a massive emergency response. You had the FDNY out here. They were out here with divers and boats. You had the NYPD as well with divers, aviation, harbor, the scuba team, as I was just talking about. You had the Coast Guard that was out here, as well as Port Authority. And from the news conference that was conducted about, I guess, 40 minutes ago at this point, where the mayor was there, the fire commissioner was there, and the police commissioner. The police commissioner saying that NYPD divers recovered 4 of the bodies from the water, and divers with the FDNY recovered 2 of those bodies. And that this, again, was a family from Spain, and they were visiting here, and they were on one of these tour helicopters taking out a beautiful ride along the Hudson River, and they had left south of where I am right now. I'm at the 34th Street Pier, south of where we are now. They were it was a beautiful day earlier today as well. Traveling up the Hudson River, they made it up to the George Washington Bridge. They got to see that gorgeous view, and then they turned around and they headed back south here along the Hudson, and that's when things went tragically wrong. And when you look at that video and you see the propeller, now earlier on my sources had told me that the propeller just came off of the helicopter, and then there is video supporting that. And then watching the body just drop like a rock into the Hudson River and then upside down. I mean, it's just the visual of it, and to know this family was on there and the pilot, I mean, my God.
I know. It is truly
it's
it's
heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, and how often we have these kind of sightseeing tour companies running in New York City. This is kind of just a routine thing that people do. We want to go to Sharon now. Sharon, last time we saw you were sharing an update from the CEO of New York Helicopter. Do you have any other updates?
Yeah, just to remind you of what he had to say, just devastated. He said he's a father and a grandfather and has never seen anything like that in his 30 years in the helicopter business. Now, we also heard from the police commissioner, from the mayor, and I should say we heard from one of the first responders telling us that they did everything they could to try to save these lives, but as you can see from the video, and the helicopter landing out of control into the Hudson River upside down, there's very little chance for survival, unfortunately. Let's hear from Mayor Adams. He spoke within the last hour.
3 adults and 3 children were on board a Bell 206 helicopter that had left from the downtown skyport just about 3 p.m. The pilot and a family visiting from Spain, with our preliminary information as at this time. Members of the FDNY and NYPD harbor units arrived at the scene, and divers from both agencies entered the water. At this time, all 6 victims have been removed from the water, and sadly, all 6 victims have been pronounced deceased.
And we now know, as Linda and we've all been reporting to you for the last couple of hours, this is a family of tourists from Spain. We don't have their identities because the next of kin is still being notified. And if you're wondering what happens next, it's the FAA and NTSB that will take over this investigation and try to figure out what it appears happened is that the propeller came apart from the helicopter, of course, not allowing for the pilot to have any control of the aircraft. So that's the very latest here from the newsroom, and we'll be following it for you. And I have to say, you know, the witness accounts are what really get to me, the ones that actually saw this happen in the air, and some of the video that we've seen is really just shocking. And to see it go down so quickly like that, you can see why it was so difficult to save lives.
Sharon, do you have any of those witness accounts that maybe have stuck with you during the coverage?
I think there's a hostess who works at a restaurant in Hoboken when this happened, and I guess she happened to be looking, you know, out the window or up in the sky when this happened, and saw smoke and saw the aircraft kind of come apart in mid-air, and then, of course, so quickly land in the Hudson River as this happened between, you know, Lower Manhattan and New Jersey. And that's why they got a response from the Port Authority and the Coast Guard and the FDNY and, of course, Jersey City and Hoboken first responders as well.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you breaking it down for us and giving us information on the tour company. We're going to turn things over to Dan Rice, who is in the same helicopter almost every single day for his job. He's not flying them, but he's in there reporting on what he sees and what's happening across our 5 boroughs. Dan, you know, as we said, you're in helicopters all the time. So when you heard that this one broke apart midair, what went through your mind?
It put a pit in my stomach, to be honest. You know, we are prepared for emergencies in the air. It's not uncommon. I would be lying if I said I didn't have some sort of incident in my career. Nothing terrible. The pilots know what to do with the aircraft to put it down. But that's because they know, the aircraft is intact. To see that two major components that keep the aircraft in the air came off the aircraft, that's scary. That is the guy who's flying the helicopter now has no control. And that honestly, it was scary to hear that. It just put a bit in my stomach when I saw the videos.
You know something, because you're part of the aviation community here in the city, so I know when this happens, there's probably some kind of group chat going on about this, a conversation about what has happened. What is that conversation like among the pilots and crews after something like this devastating happens?
There's a lot of discussion. First off, what's really nice about this community, whether it's the other stations' pilots, the other tour, we have a tour company here on the field where we fly out of. Everybody talks to each other. They check on each other to make sure everybody is, one, mentally coping with it as best as they can. Everybody is that. It's scary to see one of your colleagues have an incident like that and the people that were on board. And a lot of times it just sparks a safety conversation. Is there something we can do better? Is there something we should look out for? And the NTSB report is going to be the most crucial thing for all these pilots, is making sure that they know what happened, and if it's something that they have to worry about, they'll be on it. They'll change. It was back 2009, I believe it was, when we had that incident with a tour helicopter and an airplane over the Hudson River. It changed the way everybody flies on the Hudson River. The FAA changed the layers where different aircraft can be. And that is the one that comes out of an incident like this.
Yeah. Well, Dan Rice, we really appreciate your you being on the air with us. Thank you so much. Of course, a lot of unanswered questions tonight as we continue to follow this breaking news. We're going to have a lot more coverage coming up at 10 o'clock. Tragic day on the Hudson River today. 6 people dead in a helicopter crash. And stay with us. 10 o'clock news. We will have a lot more information. Thank you for joining us.